Chapter 1. Tan Xiu, where did you hide the money? Hurry up and take it out. Tan Xiu, even if your family lacks money, you can't just take it out randomly. As the saying goes, stealing needles when you're young will steal gold when you grow up. You can't develop the habit of stealing things, or else your life will be over. Tan Xiu, if I remember correctly, you owe the school $3,000 in tuition fees. Are you thinking of using that money to pay for your tuition fees? More than 10 people surrounded Tan Xiu and chattered non-stop. Their eyes were filled with suspicion and disgust, and their tone was filled with impatience. Tan Xiu's face was flushed red, and his lips were bleeding from being bitten. His eyes were misty, but he still raised his head and said firmly, I didn't steal the money. Shangwen, Meiyun, you two watched Xiu grow up. Xiu has always been an honest child since he was young, excelled in both morals and studies, and has never lied. Since he said he didn't steal the money, then the missing $3,000 definitely has nothing to do with him. Su Lingyun tightly hugged her son in her arms as she pleaded with the middle-aged man and woman in the room. Lingyun, we didn't say that Xiu stole the money. We just thought that he might have wanted to help you, so he hid the $3,000. The middle-aged man turned his head to the side, not daring to look Su Lingyun in the eye. Excelled in morals and studies? He. Before your son entered Xingqing No. 1 high school, he was indeed excelled in both morals and studies. But after just 1 year in Xingqing No. 1 high school, his grades plummeted, and he became the last in his grade. If it wasn't for you begging, your son would probably have been kicked out of one middle school, right? The middle-aged woman ignored Su Lingyun's despairing gaze and said in a strange tone. Hearing the words of her younger brother, Su Shangwen, and her sister-in-law, Zhang Meiyun, Su Lingyun's face turned pale, and her eyes dimmed. However, looking at her son in her arms, she had no choice but to summon the courage to defend her son again. But this time, before Su Lingyun could say anything, she was interrupted by two sharp voices. Auntie, don't protect Tan Xiu anymore. You can protect him for a while, but you can't protect him forever. There are only so many people in the family. Do you think that the 3,000 yuan was not stolen by Tan Xiu? Did the money fly away by itself? Auntie, the reason why we suspect Tan Xiu is because Tan Xiu is the most likely person to steal the money in this house. In your eyes, Tan Xiu is naturally the most outstanding, but you also know how bad Tan Xiu's actions in school this year have been. Plagiarizing homework, cheating on exams, and fighting. As his younger cousin, I can't even lift my head up in school. The ones who interrupted Su Lingyun's words were the son and daughter of Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun. If one were to say that Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun spoke tactfully and knew how to cover up their words, this pair of boy and girl clearly didn't. Sujinin, Su Xiangfei, you two are spouting nonsense and slandering me. Tan Xiu was almost shouting at the top of his lungs. Shangwen, Meiyun, please don't make things difficult for the child. If you can't find the 3,000 yuan, just think of it as me lending it to you. You also know that ever since the car accident a year ago, Xiu has become muddle-headed and can't be provoked. If something really happens to him because of his anger, I won't be able to live alone. Under the pressure of the younger brother's family, Su Lingyun's tears fell like a broken necklace of pearls as she powerlessly begged. After saying that, Su Lingyun seemed to have used up all the strength in her body. Thinking of her son's misfortune this year, Su Lingyun couldn't help but feel sorrow as she silently sobbed. Although her son had lost his father when he was young, he had been very obedient since he was young. Furthermore, his grades were especially outstanding. 2 years ago, he had entered Xingqing No. 1 high school with the highest grades in the city. During his first year of high school, her son had also been outstanding in all kinds of exams and competitions, taking first place in all subjects. However, during a car accident in the first semester of his second year of high school, her son's brain had suffered a strong impact. As a result, her son's memory and comprehension had been severely damaged. He had even been diagnosed as mentally retarded by the doctor. If it wasn't for her pleading and the fact that the school seemed to have a trace of hope for her son would have probably been expelled from school long ago. Looking at Su Lingyun's grief-stricken expression, the room fell into a brief silence. Su Yening and Su Xiangfei exchanged glances, and their faces revealed a look of pity. When everyone's attention was attracted by Su Lingyun, Tan Xiu, who was in Su Lingyun's embrace, slightly trembled as a hint of light blossomed in his eyes. Where is this? Didn't my soul scatter after I failed to transcend the tribulation? What's going on now? Tan Xiu looked around in confusion, his eyes filled with a confused look. Tan Xiu remembered that he was a powerful figure in the immortal world and was in the midst of transcending the tribulation to become a god. As long as he succeeded, he could become a god king in the immortal world and obtain the qualification to enter the gate of eternal life. Trying hard to recall what was going on, Tan Xiu's facial muscles gradually became distorted, and a look of extreme pain flashed in his eyes. The last conscious scene before he woke up finally emerged in his mind. That was the most critical moment of Tan Xiu's tribulation. At that time, he was almost at the end of his rope, and all his spiritual power and mental strength were focused on facing the divine tribulation head-on. His back was completely empty and defenseless. To his good friends who were at the peak of the immortal world, possessed countless divine weapons and divine-level talismans, and whose cultivation was only slightly lower than his, he was in a completely defenseless state. Then, just as he barely survived the 9 stages of lightning tribulation and was about to face the last wave of the silent but most terrifying mental tribulation, the primordial demonic tribulation, several of his close friends who were protecting him had tacitly launched a fatal attack at him at the same time. And among them, was Shui Qingcheng, who had been in love with him for hundreds of years. Under their joint attack, Tan Xiu's fate was almost certain. Even before his body was completely shattered and his consciousness completely lost, these people had already rushed forward to snatch the mysterious ancient book that he had accidentally obtained from the primordial fiend god ruins, the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Human nature is so ugly. In the face of a peerless divine secret skill, friendship and love are all nonsense. It's just that since I failed the tribulation, there should be no chance for me to escape. My body should have turned into powder and my soul should have dispersed. What's going on now? In a daze, a familiar female fragrance floated into Tan Xiu's nose. Breathing in the fragrance, Tan Xiu's face revealed a look of extreme enjoyment, and his mood gradually calmed down. After a long time, Tan Xiu slowly turned around and looked at the woman behind him who was hugging him. A soft face clearly appeared in front of Tan Xiu, familiar and intimate. Compared to the face in his memory, there was a shallow fishtail mark at the corner of this face's eyes. Heart demon, damn heart demon, my soul has already dispersed, how can I still be disturbed by the heart demon? Tan Xiu quickly shook his head, forcing himself not to look at the face behind him that he had yearned for thousands of years. When Tan Xiu saw the other dozen people in the house, he could not help but be startled. In the 10,000 years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had experienced countless heart tribulations, big and small, but after experiencing the heart tribulations, all of Tan Xiu's relatives were decisively abandoned by Tan Xiu, but he could not abandon his mother, so later in Tan Xiu's heart tribulations, only his mother appeared, and no other relatives appeared. Could it be that these in front of me are not heart demons? Tan Xiu looked around in doubt, his mouth also muttered. With a loud bang, Tan Xiu's memory that had been sealed for thousands of years was instantly opened, and at the same time, an obscure memory also appeared in his mind. I actually returned to the earth that I yearned for day and night. Thousands of years have passed in the immortal world, but only a year has passed on earth. After a long time, Tan Xiu finally figured out what was going on. The obscure memory that suddenly emerged in Tan Xiu's mind was all the memory that Tan Xiu's body had stored in the year on Earth. In the car accident a year ago, Tan Xiu's body was not seriously injured, but his soul was damaged, which caused his intelligence to be less than before. He lived a muddle-headed life in school, like a bystander, absorbing all the information around him, but rarely participated in the interaction. However, all this information was stored in Tan Xiu's mind, so that Tan Xiu could clearly know what he had experienced in the year on Earth. The damaged wisp of Tan Xiu's soul traveled to the immortal world and possessed the body of the immortal world's Rosefinch Holy sect leader's grandson, where he lived a wonderful and magical life for 10,000 years, 10,000 years like a dream. Unexpectedly, after being plotted against in the immortal world, that wisp of soul actually returned to the body on Earth. At this time, only a little more than a year had passed on Earth. Fairy Wanhua, Great Emperor Danqing, Zhouyaoqin Demon, the day that I return to the immortal world will be the day that you die. Tang Xiu gritted his teeth as he carefully recalled every bit of his life in the immortal world. When the last memory of the immortal world emerged in his mind, he almost shouted while gnashing his teeth. Tan Xiu's roar broke the silence in the house and attracted everyone's attention. Xiu! You! What's wrong with you? Su Lingyun was the first to react. She hugged Tan Xiu in a panic and asked nervously. Seeing that Tan Xiu's facial muscles were extremely distorted, and thinking about Tan Xiu's physical condition, the dozen or so people in the house showed regretful expressions. Then, they all looked at Su Shangwen's family with reproachful gazes. Su Shangwen's family obviously did not expect that Tang Xiu would suddenly go crazy, and from the looks of it, he was provoked by his own family. They could not help but look at each other in dismay, feeling guilty. Tang Xiu, don't put on an act here. Immortals, emperors, and demons. Do you think you're playing a game? I've never heard of a game with Fairy Wanhua, Great Emperor Danqing, and Zither Demon Jiuyao as the bosses. Just as everyone in the house was at a loss, a cold snort sounded in the house. It was Tan Xiu's cousin, Su Xiangfei, who sneered. You fool, you actually know how to act crazy. I was almost fooled by you. Don't think that we won't pursue the matter of the 3,000 yuan just because you pretend to be pitiful. I'll make it clear to you and your son that if you don't take out the 3,000 yuan today, don't even think about stepping out of this door. After a brief panic, Zhang Meiyun could not help but quietly look at Tan Xiu for a moment. Then, she became furious and scolded him sternly. It turned out that after Tan Xiu shouted angrily, he realized that he had lost his composure. Then, he felt his mother's anxiety and nervousness. He hurriedly adjusted his emotions and repeatedly comforted his mother that he was fine. This scene happened to fall into Zhang Meiyun's eyes, and it naturally angered Zhang Meiyun. Dragons give birth to dragons, and phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. The son of a mouse digs a hole in the ground. Tan Xiu glared coldly at Zhang Meiyun, then his gaze fell on Su Xiangfei. He said indifferently, Su Xiangfei, are you sure you want to continue playing the game? If you think it's more interesting this way, I don't mind playing with you. Some readers shared some pictures of beautiful women on their WeChat official account. They were so beautiful that even Silent Night was tempted. Many brothers were crying piteously for them to be pushed down. How could Tan Xiu be that kind of person? If someone was to be pushed down, it should be Silent Night, right? Let's seriously criticize this reader who shared the pictures. It's extremely unscientific to let the female supporting characters be more beautiful than the female lead. If you want to be the first to see the benefits of beautiful women every day, please quickly log into WeChat and search for the official account, Silent Night Thoughts. Or directly search for JYJS00 and follow. Not only were there wonderful and varied descriptions, but there were also all kinds of beautiful pictures. Chapter 2. Only after losing something would one know how to cherish it. Only after losing something would one know what was the most precious. During the 10,000 years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had been yearning for his mother. His mother on earth had almost become the only demon in his heart during his cultivation. Now that he had her again, Tan Xiu's heart was filled with excitement. At the same time, he also secretly swore in his heart that he must protect his mother well. Tan Xiu was originally blaming himself for his gaffe, which frightened his mother. After hearing the ridicule and abuse from Zhang Meiyun and Su Xiangfei, he naturally became furious and shouted at them without hesitation. When that wisp of soul in the immortal world returned to his body, there was no change on the surface of Tan Xiu, but in fact, there had been a tremendous change in Tan Xiu's body. The change in Tan Xiu's body was not only that his soul had been restored and his wisdom had been restored a year ago, but his whole body had undergone a qualitative change from top to bottom, from inside to outside. First of all, Tan Xiu's senses had been strengthened more than 10 times, and the speed of Tan Xiu's brain calculation was nearly 100 times faster. Everyone's words and actions in the room could not escape Tan Xiu's eyes and ears, and then all the information was processed by Tan Xiu's brain in an instant. Secondly, Tan Xiu's control of his body had also reached an amazing level. This feeling was like being tied by a rope before, and suddenly the rope was broken, and he broke free from the shackles, and a new world appeared in front of him. Finally, Tang Xiu had been in the immortal world for 10,000 years. Whether he was the hedonistic grandson of the sect leader of the holy sect, or a powerful figure of a generation, he held a high position. He was used to giving orders and ordering people around. The imposing manner that he had accumulated over the years was not something that ordinary people could imagine. When a wisp of his soul returned to the immortal world, Tang Xiu, who was on earth, inevitably had this imposing manner. Along with Tang Xiu's shout, the temperature in the room seemed to have suddenly dropped to the freezing point. Everyone in the room couldn't help but shiver. Zhang Meiyun and Su Xiangfei, the mother and son duo, felt as though their necks were being strangled as they couldn't utter a word. Tan Xiu, who asked you to shout in front of us? Do you still have any concept of seniority in your eyes? Stealing money and you still think you are in the right? After a short silence, Su Shangwen stood up and scolded fiercely. Su Shangwen could faintly feel that there was a change in his nephew's body. This change made him extremely uncomfortable and even gave him a sense of danger. It was just that he could not figure out what had happened to his nephew. Seeing his wife and son being completely suppressed by his nephew's imposing manner, he had no choice but to stand up and speak. Su Shangwen, what qualifications do you have to talk about seniority with me? You have assets of tens of millions of yuan, but you abandon your grandparents and let them live a hard life with your uncle in the countryside. You even have to share the treatment fees and the child support fees with your uncle and aunt. Is this what you call respecting your seniors? During the family gatherings, the siblings, Su Jianan and Su Xiangfei either beat or scolded the elders. You, husband and wife, are equally arrogant, bossy, and swaggering. Is this respecting seniority? Every time your family has a banquet, your grandparents, uncle, and I have paid a lot of money, but you use the excuse that there are too many people and we are not even qualified to sit at the table. Is this respecting seniority? Tan Xiu ignored Su Shangwen's fierce eyes. He glanced sideways at Su Shangwen and scolded him while counting his fingers. Su Shangwen had been in and out of the business world for more than 20 years and had accumulated some power and influence. He was used to bossing around in front of a large family and he had originally thought that as long as he sternly berated Tang Xiu would immediately become speechless. What Su Shangwen did not expect was that in the face of his scolding, Tang Xiu not only did not cower, but also confronted him tit for tat. Moreover, the other party's aura was not weaker than his at all. Instead, it steadily suppressed him. In the face of Tan Xiu's scolding, Su Shangwen was caught off guard. His face was as red as a monkey's butt, and an inexplicable anger surged in his heart. You're a bastard who's had a life but no one taught you. Since your mother can't discipline you, I'll discipline you. After being scolded by Tan Xiu, Su Shangwen could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. He raised his palm and slapped Tan Xiu's face. Tang Xiu couldn't help but sneer when he saw that Su Shangwen actually dared to make a move against him. In the 10,000 years of the immortal world, all those who dared to make a move against him were all smashed into fine powder by him. With a thought, Tan Xiu subconsciously wanted to use an immortal technique to punish this mortal ant in front of him who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. The next moment, Tan Xiu's face turned pale. Tan Xiu was used to his identity in the immortal world, but he forgot that he was just a mortal on earth. Not only did he not have the slightest bit of elemental energy in his body, but his body was also extremely weak, even worse than an ordinary person. While Tan Xiu was stunned, Su Shangwen's face revealed a ferocious and complacent smile. His palm was also less than 10 centimeters away from Tan Xiu's face. Seeing that Su Shangwen's palm was about to fall on his face, Tan Xiu could not help but reveal a look of shame and anger on his face. He had not suffered the slightest loss in the immortal world for nearly 10,000 years, but today he was actually going to be slapped by an ordinary person? Su Shangwen, don't you dare! Tan Xiu almost shouted hysterically, and his eyes bloomed with a terrifying light. Why wouldn't I dare? I'm your uncle, so don't I have the right to discipline you? Su Shangwen was shocked by Tan Xiu's fierce eyes, and his hand movements also became sluggish. After saying this, Su Shangwen was a little annoyed by Tan Xiu's contradiction. Not only did he not stop, but he also slapped Tan Xiu's face even harder. However, Su Shangwen's hesitation gave Tan Xiu a chance to dodge. When Su Shangwen spoke to embolden himself, Tan Xiu had already dodged to the side. Just when Tan Xiu thought that he had escaped a disaster, a crisp, "pa" sound rang in Tan Xiu's ears, causing Tan Xiu's heartbeat to suddenly slow down by half a beat. Tan Xiu looked back in astonishment, only to find that Su Shangwen's slap had fallen on his mother's face. Only then did Tan Xiu remember that he was just in his mother's arms, and his mother was naturally standing closely behind him. After he dodged, Su Shangwen's slap naturally fell on his mother's face. Regret, pain, anger, self-blame, in an instant, Tan Xiu's heart was swallowed by all kinds of negative emotions. No, with the position Su Shangwen was standing just now, and the length of his arm, the slap just now couldn't reach my mother's face at all. He saw that I dodged and became angry, so he deliberately took the opportunity to hit my mother. In a flash, the scene that Tan Xiu had just seen flashed in his mind, and then he looked at Su Shangwen coldly. When Tan Xiu saw Su Shangwen's slightly leaning body that had not yet had time to withdraw, and the mocking smile on Su Shangwen's mouth, the anger in Tan Xiu's heart also reached the extreme. Almost subconsciously, Tan Xiu wanted to rush forward and fight with Su Shangwen. Just looking at Su Shangwen's body that was as strong as a black bear, and then thinking of his own weak physique, Tan Xiu forcibly suppressed his inner impulse. However, Tan Xiu did not intend to swallow the insult. If the previous verbal ridicule of Su Shangwen's family only made Tan Xiu angry, the matter of Su Shangwen deliberately slapping his mother Su Lingyun had already touched the reverse scale in Tan Xiu's heart, making Tan Xiu extremely sick of Su Shangwen's family. I don't have any magical equipment, I don't have any cultivation, and even my body is extremely weak. How am I going to solve the problem in front of me? Tan Xiu stared coldly at Su Shangwen while his mind was spinning rapidly. I got it. After a moment, Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. In the 10,000 years of cultivation in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had cultivated countless cultivation methods and secret skills, and his collection of cultivation methods was as vast as the sea. He faintly remembered that there was a book called Origin Ignition Technique that could solve the problem in front of him. Origin Ignition Technique was an extremely common cultivation method in the immortal world. It was equivalent to a kind of breathing technique. It didn't require any cultivation foundation, and even ordinary people could use it. However, it would consume a small amount of the human body's life potential, but it basically wouldn't cause any harm to the body. Of course, the use of Origin Ignition Technique was extremely limited. It could only increase the strength of the body for a short period of time. Although Tan Xiu's body was currently weak, and he was completely unable to contend against Su Shangwen, but if he could accumulate and concentrate his strength, and seize the opportunity to erupt at the most critical moment, he still had the confidence to rely on close combat skills to crush Su Shangwen. Su Shangwen, why did you hit my mother? I'll fight you. After a few breaths of time, when the strength in Tan Xiu's body had accumulated to a certain extent, he found that Su Shangwen didn't have the slightest intention of apologizing to his mother, and his mother even silently endured Su Shangwen's slap. He roared and charged towards Su Shangwen. Tan Xiu's shouting and charging behavior was a bit like he had lost his mind because of anger, but this was also the reaction that the 16-year-old Tan Xiu should have. After a period of integration, Tan Xiu had completely adapted to his identity on Earth, and made the most correct reaction at this moment. Idiot, do you think I'm afraid of you? Seeing Tan Xiu, who was as thin as a bamboo pole, charging towards him, Su Shangwen's mouth curled into a contemptuous smile, and he sternly scolded, I just wanted to teach you a lesson. It was you who randomly dodged, causing your mother to be slapped. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself, don't blame me. As Su Shangwen spoke, he very casually stretched out his hand, wanting to push Tan Xiu's body to the side. There was only a crisp, "Kacha" sound, and Su Shangwen's arm was announced to be dislocated. Before Su Shangwen could even groan out in pain, he felt an enormous and unparalleled force crashing into his abdomen, causing him to almost vomit out everything he had eaten and drank during the lunch banquet. Unfortunately, Tang Xiu's palms were poking randomly on his body, causing him to want to vomit but he couldn't, causing him to feel dizzy and in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Under the severe pain, Su Shangwen's head was like a drowning weakling, and he could only unconsciously wave his hands, trying to grasp a life-saving straw. Help! Someone's been killed. There's so much blood, call the police quickly. How did a good birthday party become like this? Is it worth it for 3,000 yuan? Before he lost consciousness, Su Shangwen's ears faintly heard a burst of panicked shouts and cries, but he could not understand what was going on no matter how hard he tried. Chapter 3. Never in their wildest dreams did the people in the room imagine that a simple dispute would develop into such a tragic state. Seeing Tan Xiu and Su Shangwen paralyzed in a pool of blood at the same time, it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The people in the house panicked. Screams, cries, and cries for help came one after another. No one had the mind to care about who was right and who was wrong. In just a few minutes, the police arrived at the scene. It was strange to say that almost as soon as the police arrived at the scene, Su Shangwen, who was unconscious just now, slowly woke up, followed by Tan Xiu's muffled groan. Seeing the house full of police officers, Su Shangwen was shocked. He glanced at Tan Xiu lying on the ground and immediately remembered the scene where Tan Xiu hit him before he fainted. Su Shangwen's eyes instantly turned red. Comrade police, 3,000 yuan was stolen from my house. I suspect that it was stolen by this fool. Please arrest him. Su Shangwen didn't care about the pain in his fingers. He pointed at Tan Xiu's nose and said while gnashing his teeth. We just received a report saying that there was a murder case here. Who called the police? A silver bell-like voice sounded in the house. This time, it was a valiant policewoman who led the team. The policewoman ignored Su Shangwen's words and glanced at the people in the house. Finally, her eyes fell on Zhang Meiyun and asked in a deep voice. Under the policewoman's sharp eyes, Zhang Meiyun lowered her head guiltily and said, Comrade police, I called the police just now. I saw my husband bleeding and his nose was no longer breathing. I thought my husband was dead. I panicked and said the wrong thing when I called the police. Hearing Zhang Meiyun's explanation, the look on Qing Xuemei's face softened a lot. Comrade police, you must arrest this person. He not only stole 3,000 yuan from us, but he also hit me with brute force just now. He broke my hand. Just as Qing Xuemei bent down to examine Tan Xiu and Su Shangwen's injuries, Su Shangwen shouted again. Qing Xuemei glared at Su Shangwen and didn't say anything. She continued to do what she was doing and ordered the other policemen to seal off the scene. Police comrade, I'm good friends with Captain Wang of the Public Security Brigade. I've even had a drink with Commissioner Deng and sponsored your municipal bureau many times. Seeing that Qing Xuemei was ignoring him, Su Shangwen felt that he had lost face, so he quickly reminded her. Why don't you say that your family owns the Municipal Public Security Bureau and I have to arrest whoever you want me to arrest? Qing Xuemei originally hated Su Shangwen's arrogant attitude. After hearing Su Shangwen's words, she raised her head and sneered coldly. Su Shangwen obviously didn't expect that after he revealed his relationship with the Municipal Public Security Bureau, the policewoman in front of him not only didn't buy it, but also hated him even more. He couldn't help but be speechless for a while. Without Su Shangwen's disturbance, Qing Xuemei quickly checked the injuries on Su Shangwen and Tan Xiu's bodies. Qing Xuemei found that Su Shangwen's arm was dislocated, and the rest of his body was almost unharmed. On the contrary, Tan Xiu's waist and abdomen were injured in many places, and his whole body was in a state of exhaustion. What puzzled Qing Xuemei was the big pool of blood on the ground. What Qing Xuemei could confirm was that although the injuries on Tan Xiu's body looked terrible, in fact, it was not serious. However, the people at the scene said that all the blood on the ground was vomited by Tan Xiu, which made her wonder if there was something wrong with her eyes. "Do you feel any discomfort?" Qing Xuemei took a look at the pale face of Tan Xiu and asked with concern. "Sis, I'm fine. I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want my mom to worry." Tan Xiu shook his head and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito. Qing Xuemei stared at Tan Xiu for a moment, then glanced at the anxious Su Lingyun next to her and fell into silence for a while. "Captain Cheng, do we need to hand over the case to Captain Wang?" After confirming that there was no murder at the scene, and it was not even a serious injury accident, but just an ordinary public security case, the few criminal police officers who came with Qing Xuemei had the thought of leaving. "Chief Deng just said at the mobilization meeting yesterday that we need to save the police force. Do we need to dispatch the police force twice for such a small matter?" Qing Xuemei glared at the police officer who spoke and said unhappily. After speaking, Qing Xuemei felt relaxed. The other few police officers who came with Qing Xuemei were dumbfounded. They almost thought that there was something wrong with their ears. According to their understanding, Qing Xuemei was not a nosy person. In the past, when she encountered such public security cases, she would hide as far as possible, let alone take the initiative to get involved. However, when they thought of the conversation between Qing Xuemei and Su Shangwen after arriving at the scene, they seemed to vaguely understand what was going on. In the municipal bureau, Qing Xuemei abhorred evil and especially disliked the style of Wang Hao, the captain of the public security team. However, Su Shangwen just had to mention that he and Wang Hao were close friends, which was undoubtedly digging his own grave. With Qing Xuemei's order, several criminal police officers quickly got busy. Watching the police search the house, Su Jianan and Su Xiangfei's faces became pale, and their bodies were also trembling. They really wanted the police to stop investigating the 3,000 yuan, but they did not have the courage to speak at this moment. "Yanning, Xiangfei, the police just said that Dad was just dislocated. You don't have to worry." Seeing his children's abnormal expressions, Su Shangwen thought that the two children were frightened by the scene of him fainting on the ground just now, so he smiled and comforted them. Hearing their father's comfort, Su Jianan and Su Xiangfei were about to cry, but the police officers were beside them, so they did not dare to say anything. Soon, the police officers found 3,000 yuan in the house. The money was found on top of the closet in the bedroom. While the group of police officers found 3,000 yuan in cash, they also found a clear palm print on top of the closet. The top of the closet had not been cleaned for a long time, so a thin layer of dust had accumulated. The person who hid the money accidentally left a mark on it. Qing Xuemei first stared at the palm print for a while, then swept her eyes across the people in the house, and finally locked on Su Xiangfei. "Classmate Su Xiangfei, can you explain to me what's going on with this palm print?" Staring at Su Xiangfei for a moment, Qing Xuemei suddenly asked in a stern voice. "It's not my fault, it was my sister who told me to hide the money. She said that she hated Tan Xiu, and Tan Xiu is an idiot with a bad record at school. Even if we wronged him, he would not be able to defend himself." Su Xiangfei already had a guilty conscience. Hearing Qing Xuemei's stern voice, his tense nerves instantly collapsed, and he hurriedly shirked the responsibility. I just wanted to play a prank on Tan Xiu, I didn't want to steal the money." Seeing that everyone's eyes in the house were focused on her, Sujinan panicked and explained. Hearing the words of Su Xiangfei and Sujinan, even if Qing Xuemei did not speak, the people in the house understood what was going on. After all this time, it turned out to be a thief crying thief. This family is really outrageous. "You say, This family does not lack the 3,000 yuan, why do they have to wrongly accuse the orphan and the widow? It's the mother and son's bad luck to have such relatives. If it were me, I would have cut ties with such relatives long ago. Why would I continue to associate with them and be insulted for no reason? Today was Su Shangwen's 40th birthday banquet. Although most of the guests left after the luncheon, there were still many people who stayed to continue the banquet. When Tang Xiu's matter became big, what was originally only known by a dozen people in the bedroom, was instantly known by all the guests. After all, it was human nature to watch the drama, not to mention that this matter was closely related to the protagonist of today's wedding banquet. The arrival of the police not only attracted all the guests, but also the neighbors all rushed over to join in the fun. Everyone originally thought that it was really Tan Xiu who stole the 3,000 yuan because he was poor. The moment the truth was revealed, they realized how outrageous the matter was. While they sympathized with Su Lingyun and her son, they also looked at Su Shangwen's family with disgust and contempt. Obviously, Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun did not expect the truth of the matter to be like this, and they could not help but be stunned for a moment. Hearing the discussions and accusations of the people around them, feeling their mocking and disdainful eyes, Su Shangwen's family only felt a burning pain on their faces. Comrade police, hiding your own family's money shouldn't be considered stealing, right? I'm sorry to have made you come here for nothing today. After a long time, Su Shangwen finally calmed down a little. He walked in front of Qing Xuemei with a smile and softly begged. Hiding your own family's money is indeed not a crime. However, according to our country's criminal law, those who use violence or other means to publicly insult others or fabricate facts to slander others, if the circumstances are serious, will be sentenced to not more than 3 years of imprisonment, criminal detention, public surveillance, or deprivation of political rights. Not only did you confuse black and white and fabricate facts, you have already committed the crime of slander. In addition, according to the relevant provisions of our country's criminal law, those who intentionally hurt others will be sentenced to not more than 3 years of imprisonment, criminal detention, or public surveillance. Those who cause serious injury will be sentenced to not less than 3 years and not more than 10 years of imprisonment. Because of your beating, Tan Xiu suffered many injuries, and even caused him to vomit blood and faint. You will be sentenced to not only 10 years, but also 3 to 5 years. When Qing Xuemei saw that Su Shangwen still didn't realize his mistake at this time, and instead calmly defended his son's behavior, she couldn't help but sneer. Ignoring the pleading eyes of Su Shangwen's family, Qing Xuemei waved her hand and loudly said, "Take all the relevant people back for questioning." Comrade police, it's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Tan Xiu is our nephew, how could we slander him, and how could we deliberately hurt him? Seeing that Qing Xuemei seemed to be serious, Su Shangwen panicked. He grabbed Qing Xuemei's sleeve and begged loudly. While Su Shangwen was talking to Qing Xuemei, he looked at Su Lingyun for help. Zhang Meiyun also realized that at this moment, only Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu could save her family. She pulled her children's sleeves and slowly walked in front of Su Lingyun. Lingyun, as the saying goes, if the people don't report, the officials won't investigate. You see, we are a family, and it's easy to talk behind closed doors. Yanning and Xiangfei's joke was a bit too much, but they are still children playing around. How about you tell the police that we can solve this matter in private? Zhang Meiyun said with a smile. Hearing Zhang Meiyun's words, Su Lingyun directly turned her head to the side. Second sister, it's Xiangfei's fault today. I'll let Xiangfei apologize to Xiu, and then we can forget about this matter. If you insist on taking things to the extreme, we won't be seeing each other anymore. Seeing that Su Lingyun actually dared to put on airs in front of his wife, Su Shangwen couldn't help but snort coldly, and his eyes were filled with a threatening look. Don't forget that Tan Xiu is still studying at Xingqing No. 1 High School. With his grades and character, if it weren't for my relationship with Xingqing No. 1 High School, he could be kicked out at any time. The cold voice spat out from Su Shangwen's mouth made the temperature in the room drop by more than 10 degrees. Su Lingyun's body also trembled, and she had to turn her head to look at Su Shangwen. Chapter 4. Su Shangwen's words not only shocked Su Lingyun, but the other people in the room were also dumbfounded when they heard it. They obviously didn't expect that Su Shangwen would be so shameless to this extent. His own son had done something wrong, but he didn't know how to apologize. He didn't have the attitude to ask for help, and instead, he was condescendingly threatening others. However, thinking of Su Shangwen's influence in Star City, everyone couldn't help but feel a moment of silence for Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu, mother and son. Even if Su Shangwen's character was unbearable, it was an indisputable fact that he had tens of millions of yuan in assets. The rich connections he had accumulated in Star City for more than a decade were equally enough to make people despair. Everyone thought that Su Lingyun, who had a weak character, would certainly bow her head to Su Shangwen. But then, they saw the expressionless face of Su Lingyun suddenly reveal a smile. Then, she gently tiptoed, raised her palm, and fiercely slapped Su Shangwen's face. The sound of the slap was so clear and loud that everyone in the living room thought that their ears had a problem. In everyone's eyes, Su Lingyun was the kind of person who was refined, dignified, gentle, and gentle. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she had a weak character. It was always others who bullied her, and she had never bullied others. But today, she unexpectedly hit someone, and the one she hit was the tall and strong Su Shangwen. This made everyone's eyes drop to the floor. Seeing his mother hit someone, Tan Xiu, who was lying on the floor, was incomparably carefree in his heart. He couldn't help but burst into laughter. However, extreme joy turned to sorrow. Tan Xiu's body on earth was originally very weak, and suddenly, his soul was restored. In a short period of time, he experienced great sorrow and great joy twice. Moreover, he also used the origin ignition art, a breathing technique that consumed his life's potential. He only laughed 3 times before he fainted. When Su Shangwen realized that he had actually been slapped by his younger sister who was a lot shorter than him, an ominous glint flashed through his eyes. He roared and wanted to beat up Su Lingyun. Unexpectedly, before Su Shangwen could make a move, a pair of cold handcuffs fell on his hands. It was Qing Xuemei, who was standing on the side and watching the show, had long been guarding against him. Hu Wenxiu and I will send Tan Xiu to the hospital. Madam Su Lingyun will come with us. The rest of you, bring the relevant people back to the police station. Qing Xuemei glared at Su Shangwen in disgust and waved her hand to put an end to today's operation. Looking at the figures of Qing Xuemei and the others leaving, Su Shangwen was like a deflated ball, instantly wilting. Zhang Meiyun also didn't expect that a good wedding banquet would unexpectedly end up in a tragedy because of her family. After being arrested and sent to the police station, although her family could come out easily, but their reputation among their relatives, friends, and neighbors was completely ruined. Su Jianan and Su Xiangfei, the siblings, had long been dumbfounded. They obviously couldn't understand how a simple prank could develop into such a tragic situation. Tan Xiu deliberately made things bigger. All of this was directed by Tan Xiu. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's devilish smile emerged in Su Xiangfei's mind, as well as Tan Xiu saying that he wanted to continue playing with him. Su Xiangfei shouted hysterically. Unfortunately, at this moment, no one paid attention to the neurotic Su Xiangfei. Late at night, Star City People's Hospital. It was late at night. The sky was full of twinkling stars, and a round of clear moonlight shone through the glass window directly on Tan Xiu's pale, thin, but delicate face. Heaven's gods and earth's demons, heaven and earth are fixed, gods and demons are divided. Lowly to gods, so demons are lowly. Lowly to demons, so gods are lowly. But movement and stillness are constant, yin and yang are combined, hard and soft are difficult to distinguish. Birds of a feather flock together, good and bad are born, and change is seen, one yin and one yang are the way. Suddenly, a string of obscure words came out of Tan Xiu's mouth, waking up Su Lingyun who was resting on the edge of the bed. Su Lingyun thought that her son was frightened by what happened in the afternoon, so much so that he was lying on the bed having a nightmare. She subconsciously wanted to wake her son up. But after looking at her son's face in the dim light, she dispelled the idea. Although her son was saying obscure words, his face was unusually relaxed, and his two good-looking eyebrows were squeezed into a crescent shape, as if he was smiling. Is my son reciting ancient Chinese? Thinking that her son was about to face the third year of high school, Su Lingyun instantly felt relieved. In the next moment, Su Lingyun's eyes suddenly widened. Su Lingyun was surprised to find that the light of the stars outside the window suddenly became dazzling, and finally formed a little bit of starlight that penetrated the glass window and shone on her son's pale face. The little bit of starlight silently merged into her son's body. A thin layer of milky white mist formed around his son's body, lingering around him like a dreamy bubble in the night. Seeing her son's pale face slowly become rosy, and his forehead seemed to be covered with a layer of holy light, Su Lingyun slowly reached out her hands towards the milky white mist, wanting to confirm if what she saw was an illusion. But as soon as Su Lingyun touched the milky white mist, all of the milky white mist disappeared without a trace. It seems that the matter during the day gave me too much stimulation, causing my eyes to be blurred. Su Lingyun smiled bitterly, then helped Tan Xiu tidy up the quilt, and then lay down to rest again. What Su Lingyun did not notice was that as the milky white mist disappeared, Tan Xiu's pale face became rosy, and his eyelashes also gently flickered. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis. I actually successfully cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. After lying quietly on the bed for a moment, Tan Xiu could not help but be stunned after checking his body's condition. His face was full of disbelief. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis was a mysterious ancient book that Tan Xiu inadvertently obtained in the ancient god and devil ruins. This cultivation method was passed down from the ancient era. In the ancient era, it was said that there was no spiritual energy between the heavens and earth, but was instead filled with chaotic energy. The human race was like ants, and the heavens were ruled by the god race and the devil race. Their cultivation methods could move mountains and drain seas, and destroy the heavens and earth. Among them, the god race's innate divine sense was incomparably powerful, so their cultivation method was mostly spiritual cultivation. The devil race's innate strong and invincible body was mostly physical cultivation. Although the cultivation methods of the two races were incomparably powerful, they were mutually exclusive, and could not be cultivated at the same time. It was precisely because the god race and devil race's cultivation methods were too powerful and destructive, that led to the extinction of the two races, leaving behind only some battlefield traces and incomplete manuals. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis that Tan Xiu found was a perfect cultivation method that could allow the geniuses of the god race and the devil race to cultivate at the same time. After obtaining the cultivation method, Tan Xiu was wild with joy. The first thing he did was to study the cultivation method. However, 100 years later, Tan Xiu had no choice but to declare his attempt a failure. This was because this cultivation method required the cultivator to start from zero, whether it was the physical state or the mental state. Everything had to return to the origin, which was to return to the embryonic state when one was born. Not only did it require the purest physical body, but it also required the purest consciousness. This was something that was simply impossible to achieve. Tan Xiu went into closed-door meditation for 100 years, but he still could not find a solution. Feeling disappointed, Tan Xiu threw the heavenly art of cosmic genesis into his storage ring like throwing garbage. He did not share it with his confidants and best friends, because Tan Xiu felt that sharing it with them would be useless. It would only waste their time and energy, and might even cause them to go berserk. It was also this decision that caused Tan Xiu's confidants and best friends to resent Tan Xiu. It even led to them joining hands to deal with Tan Xiu. In the end, Tan Xiu ended up with his soul scattered and died with everlasting regret. Why was it that I was unable to successfully cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis in the immortal world for nearly 100 years, but on Earth, I was able to successfully cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis in just one night? Could it be that the cultivation aptitude of this body on Earth is much better than the body in the immortal world? Tan Xiu fell into deep thought. Soon, Tan Xiu denied this speculation. Tan Xiu's body in the immortal world, as the hedonistic grandson of the sect leader of the holy sect, was watered with all kinds of heavenly treasures when he was still in his mother's womb. After he was born, his muscles and marrows were cleansed. Whether it was wisdom or cultivation aptitude, he was incomparably monstrous. Not only did his cultivation speed advance by leaps and bounds, his talent in alchemy, formation, weapon refining, talisman making and other aspects were equally hard to match. Tan Xiu's body on earth was malnourished since childhood. Later, because he was obsessed with learning, he lacked exercise. After the car accident, he was often injured. It would be strange if his cultivation aptitude was better than the cultivation aptitude in the immortal world. Since it's not a problem of cultivation aptitude, then what is the problem? Tan Xiu silently felt the traces of star power in his body, as well as the faint but incomparably clear life force, and once again fell into deep thought. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis required the cultivator to start from zero, whether it was the physical state or the mental state. Everything had to return to the original state, which was to return to the embryonic state before birth. In ancient times, it was said that there was no spiritual energy in the world, only chaotic energy. The current Earth was also an environment with almost no spiritual energy. The initial physical body, initial consciousness, after vomiting blood and fainting, his body was completely paralyzed and out of control. It could barely be said that he was starting from zero. His soul had also just been restored, and his mental state was incomparably pure. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was starting from zero. With the mentality of taking a gamble, Tan Xiu skipped over the general principles that he had pondered over thousands of times and began the first stage of cultivation. The first stage of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, tyrannical body of stars. Heavenly gods and earthly demons, heaven and earth are fixed, gods and demons are divided. Lowly to gods, so demons are lowly. Lowly to demons, so gods are lowly. But movement and stillness are constant, yin and yang coexist, hard and soft are difficult to distinguish. Birds of a feather flock together, good and bad are born, images are formed, changes are seen, one yin and one yang is the way. Following the recitation of the mantra, Tan Xiu found that his divine sense extended infinitely, and finally saw the sky full of stars. For the first time in his life, Tan Xiu felt that the sky full of stars was so kind and lovely, making Tan Xiu involuntarily give birth to the thought of touching and loving them. Almost with a thought, Tan Xiu's divine sense began to extend towards one of the stars. As if responding to the call of Tan Xiu's divine sense, the star suddenly shone brightly, and then turned into countless starlight that sprinkled towards Tan Xiu's divine sense. When all the starlight was absorbed by Tan Xiu's body, Tan Xiu's divine sense extended towards the other stars. Gradually, Tan Xiu had forgotten that he was in a state of cultivation, and began to play a game of hide-and-seek with the stars. Ah! Not knowing how much time had passed, Tan Xiu's mouth issued a scream, and then he withdrew from the state of cultivation. Chapter 5. Xiu, did you have a nightmare? Tan Xiu's screams awakened Su Lingyun from her deep sleep. Seeing Tan Xiu's sweaty appearance, Su Lingyun's heart was in her throat. The intense pain nearly caused Tan Xiu to lose consciousness. After a long while, Tan Xiu gradually recovered his breath. Looking at his mother's anxious and concerned expression, Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before gently nodding his head in agreement to his mother's guess. Tan Xiu didn't want to tell anyone about the matters in the immortal world. An ordinary man's wealth would arouse his own ruin. Tan Xiu didn't want to put himself in danger. Although Tan Xiu believed that his mother wouldn't hurt him, he was worried that his mother would be used by someone with ulterior motives, or that his mother's peaceful life would be disrupted. My child, you're not even well behaved when you're sleeping. You're sweating so much and your body stinks. I'll go get some hot water for you to wipe your body. Su Lingyun quietly stared at her son for a moment before smiling and leaving. After confirming that his mother had gone far away, Tan Xiu sucked in a breath of cold air and couldn't help but cry out in pain again. However, Tan Xiu's face was filled with a smile. Domineering, really too domineering. It turns out that this heavenly art of cosmic genesis came from the immortal world's ancient era, which lacked spiritual energy. It actually absorbed the power of the sun, moon, stars, and the universe for one's own use. Originally, I didn't have the qualifications to cultivate it, but fortunately, when I was paralyzed and vomited blood, I unconsciously cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis and barely met the requirements of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, thus obtaining the qualifications to cultivate it. Otherwise, with just my consciousness and weak body, I still wouldn't be able to cultivate this miraculous cultivation technique. I'm so lucky. Feeling the trace of star power in his body, as well as the faint but incomparably clear life force, Tan Xiu couldn't contain his joy. However, the smile on Tan Xiu's face quickly froze, and he fell into silence. The pain just now had left an indelible impression on Tan Xiu. That pain was comparable to the peerless heart tribulation he had encountered when he became a god in the immortal world, the primordial demon tribulation. Tan Xiu did not want to suffer the same pain again. However, there was a fatal flaw, and that was that the cultivator had to have a strong enough physique to support the boundless cosmic energy absorbed from the starry sky. The creator of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis had repeatedly emphasized that if one wanted to cultivate the first layer of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, the star's tyrannical body, one must prepare enough rare medicinal herbs, rare minerals, internal organs of fierce beasts, blood essence, tendons, and so on to temper one's body. The star's tyrannical body realm included training qi, skin strengthening, flesh strengthening, bone transformation, meridian transformation, marrow transformation, viscera transformation, qi and blood circulation, and 9 controlled Dan steps. This was a cultivation technique that the genius of the god race had designed based on the weak physique of the people of the god race, imitating the principles of the demon race's demonic body. Every small stage of tempering one's body required innumerable rare materials, and each was different. The requirements of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis for the cultivator's body were extremely high. If the body's strength was not up to the standard, no matter how fast the cultivation speed of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis was, in the end, the cultivator would only end up absorbing too much star power and explode to death. It wasn't easy to return to Earth. I don't want to explode and die. The reason why I wanted to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis in the immortal world was because the immortal world was a chaotic world of slaughter, and one must have a strong enough cultivation base to preserve one's life. On Earth, laws and peace are very important, so there is no need to have too high a cultivation base. After a brief moment of surprise, Tan Xiu gradually calmed down, and at the same time, decisively gave up the idea of continuing to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. On one hand, it was true that continuing to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis could lead to the terrifying fate of exploding and dying. On the other hand, the memory of his close friends and confidants in the immortal world joining hands to deal with him for the sake of this divine skill was too painful. Since there is no need to have too high a cultivation base on Earth, and cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis is dangerous, I can completely cultivate other cultivation methods and secret skills. Putting down the heavy burden of nearly 100 years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu felt relaxed. When Tan Xiu was in the immortal world, as the grandson of the sect master, he possessed countless cultivation methods and combat skills of the Rosefinch Holy Sect. He had also purchased and exchanged countless inheritances and secret manuals from other sects and sections. After becoming one of the few supremes in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had practically swept through the entire immortal world's cultivation methods and combat skills. Therefore, there were too many cultivation methods and combat skills for Tan Xiu to choose from. Golden Goose Art, Blue Flame Art, Ice Heart Art. Others were worried about not having cultivation methods and combat skills to cultivate, but Tan Xiu was worried about which cultivation method and combat skill he should choose to cultivate. Xiu, I'm sorry. Mom shouldn't have slapped your uncle during the day. Although it was very satisfying at that time, it was very likely that you would be kicked out of Xingqing No. 1 High School. While Tan Xiu was worrying, Su Lingyun had already brought in a basin of hot water. Looking at Tan Xiu's worried face, she thought that Tan Xiu was worried about the problem of going to school. Mom, it's okay. It's fine if I hit him. It's fine if I don't want those kind of relatives. Otherwise, I will always be bullied by them for no reason. Seeing his mother's face full of guilt, Tanshio had no choice but to recollect his thoughts and comfort her with a smile. But, Mom, you don't have to worry about things that haven't happened yet. Maybe I can continue to stay in Xingqing No. 1 high school. If I really can't stay in Xingqing No. 1 high school, I think 7th high school should be willing to accept me, right? It depends on whether Mom is willing to continue spending money on me. Su Lingyun still wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Tanshio. Brat, I only have you as my son. How can I not be willing to spend money on you? After seriously staring at her son for a moment, Su Lingyun found that her son really didn't blame her or blame her. She subconsciously let out a sigh of relief. While Su Lingyun was helping Tanshio wipe his body, Tanshio was still thinking about what cultivation method and combat skill he should cultivate. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Only when Tanshio felt his pants being pulled down and a chill in his crotch did he completely come back to his senses. Mom, I can do it myself. You go to the side and rest. Tanshio quickly pulled up his pants and at the same time grabbed the hot towel in his mother's hand. He said with a flushed face. Brat, I gave birth to you. What part of your body haven't I seen? Su Lingyun scolded him with a smile, but she didn't continue to insist on helping Tanshio wipe his body. Instead, she turned around and tidied up the things in the ward. Shio, the doctor said that your body is fine. Even the hidden illness from a year ago has been cured. How do you feel? After vomiting a few mouthfuls of extravasated blood at my uncle's house, my whole body feels relaxed and my mind is much more flexible. The knowledge that was vague before seems to be integrated now. Mom, I have a feeling that I can take back the first place that belongs to me. Under the nervous gaze of Su Lingyun, Tanshio said with a face full of excitement. Naturally, Tanshio knew what his mother was concerned about, so he spoke according to his mother's thoughts. In fact, Tanshio's words couldn't be considered as lying to his mother. It could only be considered as a well-intentioned concealment. After his soul was restored, when Tanshio examined his body, he found that there were many extravasated blood in his body. He knew that it was the hidden illness left behind from the car accident. When he used the origin ignition art, Tanshio originally wanted to teach Su Shangguan a painful lesson. However, when he made his move, Tanshio suddenly realized that this was the peaceful and prosperous earth, and not the immortal world where killing was decisive. Su Shangguan was just a family member that he hated, not a mortal enemy. Therefore, he withdrew a lot of power and used it all to clear the extravasated blood in his body. Therefore, it could be said that the hidden illness in Tanshio's body wasn't cured without treatment, but Tanshio had taken care of it himself. As for his academic performance, after his soul was restored, Tanshio had already recovered his original wisdom. Not to mention that he also had the 10,000 years of knowledge and immortal law from the immortal world. If he still couldn't get the first place in his grade, then his 10,000 years in the immortal world would have been wasted. After confirming that there was no problem with Tanshio's body, Su Lingyun helped Tanshio handle the discharge surgery. After returning home and simply tidying up, Tanshio had no other choice but to go to school under his mother's urging. Shio, your uncle and we are family, after all. I don't think your uncle will be so ruthless. If you really can't stay in Xingqing No. 1 high school, Mom will think of a way to get you into Star City No. 2 high school. If it doesn't work, there's still Star City No. 7 high school. Before entering the school gate, Su Lingyun reluctantly helped Tanshio tidy up his clothes and said softly. I know, Mom. I'll just focus on my studies and won't think about other things, because I have you for everything. Tanshio gently hugged his mother and said in a crisp voice, you also have to take care of your body, or else I'll be distracted. After saying that, Tanshio turned around and left, leaving behind Su Lingyun with red eyes. Naughty brat, you suddenly became so emotional. I'm not used to it. Feeling the tremendous changes in her son, Su Lingyun sighed with emotion in her heart. At the same time, a great sense of satisfaction also spontaneously arose in her heart. What Su Lingyun didn't know was that Tan Xiu didn't go far. He walked to the corner of the teaching building. After confirming that his mother couldn't see his figure, Tan Xiu's body flashed and hid in the corner, secretly watching his mother. When Tan Xiu saw the tears at the corner of his mother's eyes and the gratified smile on her face, Tan Xiu's nose turned sour and 2 lines of tears uncontrollably gushed out. No one, including Su Lingyun, could imagine how deep the feelings between Tan Xiu and Su Lingyun were. Separated for 10,000 years, yearning for 10,000 years. During the 10,000 years in the immortal world, his mother was Tan Xiu's only concern. She was also Tan Xiu's biggest heart demon. No matter how hard Tan Xiu tried, he couldn't get rid of this concern. Although Tan Xiu hadn't seen his mother for 10,000 years in the immortal world, Tan Xiu had gone through countless reincarnations with his mother in the heart tribulation. In almost every reincarnation, Su Lingyun was Tan Xiu's mother, and Tan Xiu was Su Lingyun's only son. Fortunately, the 10,000 years in the immortal world had given Tan Xiu an extremely strong ability to control his emotions. At the last moment in the immortal world, he was betrayed and hurt by his confidant and the supreme thinker, which made Tan Xiu sad. Otherwise, when he suddenly returned to Earth, Tan Xiu would definitely hug his mother and cry bitterly. "Mom, you've been protecting this family for the past 17 years. From now on, let me protect this family." Tan Xiu watched his mother's back as she walked further and further away, and finally disappeared in the crowd as he silently said in his heart. Chapter 6. When Tan Xiu arrived at the classroom, most of the students were engrossed in their books, tackling one test after another. There was also a small number of students who were reading aloud from their textbooks. The atmosphere in the classroom was tense. There were only 3 months left before the college entrance examination. When the homeroom teacher and the class teacher repeatedly emphasized the importance of the college entrance examination and conducted weekly and monthly tests for the senior high school students again and again, the group of 17 or 18 years old teenagers could not help but be nervous. Looking at the dazzling countdown on the blackboard and the students in the classroom who were studying intensely, Tan Xiu felt that he was out of place in this world. "Anyway, I'm only here to fulfill my mother's wish. I'm not really here to study, so I don't have to care too much about everything around me." Tan Xiu quickly stopped looking around and walked quickly to his desk. What Tan Xiu did not expect was that when he stepped into the classroom, the students who were busy with their work almost all stopped what they were doing at the same time and focused their attention on Tan Xiu. Those gazes were filled with contempt, ridicule, disdain, and even disgust, which made Tan Xiu feel puzzled. "Tan Xiu, we don't welcome you here. Get out of here." Suddenly, a broken gong-like voice sounded in the classroom. It was a tall and skinny teenager who looked at Tan Xiu with a face full of disgust and ordered Tan Xiu in an arrogant manner. Feeling the strong hostility from the tall and skinny student, Tan Xiu's eyes turned cold and his body was full of murderous intent. The tall and skinny student's name was Yang Jian. He was the class commissary in charge of studies. Because his grades were worse than Tan Xiu's, he was jealous of Tan Xiu. After Tan Xiu's grades dropped, Yang Jian hit him when he was down and took every opportunity to ridicule and suppress Tan Xiu. "Tan Xiu, we don't welcome you here. Get out of here. Tan Xiu, we don't welcome you here. Get out of here. Tan Xiu, we don't welcome you here. Get out of here." Before Tan Xiu had time to question Yang Jian, there was a sudden uproar in the classroom. The sharp shouts were like a stormy sea, one wave higher than the other, causing Tan Xiu to freeze at the door. Just as Tan Xiu was about to clarify the matter, a loud clang came from the classroom. Tan Xiu looked over and saw a fat man sitting in the last row of the classroom stood up and directly smashed his chair on the desk. Fatty's action of smashing the desk was really too big that even the classroom slightly trembled. Along with this loud sound, the students who were just hysterically crusading against Tan Xiu seemed to have their necks strangled. All the noise stopped abruptly and the classroom fell into a deathly silence. Isn't Tan Xiu just bad at the exam? This is not the result he wanted. Is it necessary for you to target him like this? I'm desk mate with Tan Xiu. I've seen Tan Xiu's hard work for more than a year. I'm sure that Tan Xiu is the most diligent student in the class. If it weren't for the car accident a year ago, you guys wouldn't even be able to catch up with Tan Xiu's back. What right do you have to yell at him here? Let's take a step back. So what if Tan Xiu's grades are bad? It's not like you have the final say in this class. He can come and go as he pleases. It's none of your business. Seeing that everyone's eyes were focused on him, Fatty indignantly defended Tan Xiu. Fatty was very fat. He was more than 1.8 meters tall. His round belly made him look like a pregnant woman who was 10 months pregnant. His originally small eyes were squeezed by his fierce-looking face. His eyeballs couldn't be seen at all. Perhaps it was because Fatty's body gave everyone a huge pressure, or maybe it was because Fatty's fiendish appearance was too lethal. Everyone in the classroom was shocked by Fatty alone. Yuan Chuling, what are you showing off for? The reason why our class's average grades are at the bottom of the elite class is because you two don't live up to expectations. As the saying goes, a rat's poop spoils a pot of porridge. With 2 rats' poop in our class, it'll be hard for our average grades to go up. After a long silence, Yang Jian muttered without much confidence. Yang Jian, who's the rat's poop? If you have the guts, say it again. With a quang dang sound, Yuan Chuling kicked the desk to the ground. He glared at Yang Jian with eyes that emitted a light that seemed like he was about to devour him. He asked in a stern voice. Yang Jian was frightened by Yuan Chuling's actions to the point that his face turned deathly pale. His eyes also evaded Yuan Chuling's gaze, not daring to meet Yuan Chuling's eyes. Yang Jian, it's not that I want to criticize you, but with a coward like you, no matter how good your grades are, once you enter society, you'll only have a life of working for others. Do you really think that just because your grades are good that you're amazing? If I want to take care of you, it'll be a matter of minutes. Seeing that Yang Jian had admitted defeat, Yuan Chuling sneered. He no longer paid attention to Yang Jian. Instead, he used his feet to hook his desk and chair up, and then sat down. He didn't know whether the desk and chair had been in disrepair for a long time, or Yuan Chuling's action just now was too fierce, so that the original sturdy chair was smashed. When Yuan Chuling sat down on his chair, there was only a squeak sound, and the chair announced that it was on strike. Then, Yuan Chuling's hands and feet flailed wildly, and finally, he sat down on the ground, and there was a heart-wrenching scream from his throat. After Yuan Chuling's disturbance, the original hostile atmosphere in the classroom instantly disappeared without a trace, and some people even couldn't help but laugh. Tan Xiu almost laughed, but he remembered that Yuan Chuling had just stood up for justice, and he held back his laughter. Instead, he quickly walked to Yuan Chuling and helped Yuan Chuling up. Most of the students, led by Yang Jian, didn't dare to laugh. Yuan Chuling's temper was too violent, and everyone was afraid to anger Yuan Chuling. Are you done? If you're done, then stop for me. When everyone's attention was attracted by Yuan Chuling, who was sitting in the back row, a cold voice suddenly sounded from the front door of the classroom. Hearing this majestic voice, the classroom was instantly silent, and even Yuan Chuling stopped groaning. Tan Xiu looked at the chair on the ground, which was almost intact, and then looked at Yuan Chuling, who was unscathed. He couldn't help but be shocked. As if seeing through Tan Xiu's mind, Yuan Chuling blinked at Tan Xiu, and then blinked again. If it weren't for Tan Xiu's vision greatly improved after his soul was restored, Yuan Chuling's originally one-line eyes would have blinked in vain. This damn fatty is a smart person. After seeing Yuan Chuling winking at him, Tan Xiu instantly understood the deep meaning of Yuan Chuling's wrestling just now. He couldn't help but admire Yuan Chuling's high EQ in his heart. Yuan Chuling just wanted to target only Yang Jian, and not the whole class. But his behavior just now was too arrogant, and it was easy to arouse the disgust of the students in the class. But after putting on a bitter show, the impact of Yuan Chuling's arrogant and overbearing behavior was obviously diluted. Instead, they would have a fresh impression of him. The whole campus can hear your noise. You don't feel ashamed, but I feel ashamed. Do you still have the appearance of students from the important class? Seeing that he had successfully intimidated more than 60 students in the class, the expression on Hu Qiusheng's face slightly relaxed. Hu Qiusheng's gaze swept across everyone in the classroom one by one, causing the students to tremble in fear. One by one, they all lowered their heads guiltily. Only Tan Xiu, Yuan Chuling, and Yang Jian straightened their chests, completely not frightened by Hu Qiusheng's gaze. Hu Qiusheng's disgusted gaze skipped from Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling, and finally fell on Yang Jian. Hu Qiusheng's face finally revealed a smile. Yang Jian, what happened just now? Why is the classroom as chaotic as a market? Teacher Hu, Tan Xiu didn't attend self-study last night, and he was late for self-study this morning. I said a few words to him, and then Yuan Chuling smashed chairs and kicked tables. He mocked us, saying that it's useless no matter how good our grades are. When we enter society, we will only be carrying bags for others. Besides, he also said that if he wants to deal with us, it's just a matter of time. With the class teacher backing him up, Yang Jian became full of confidence. He cast a sidelong glance at Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling, adding oil to the fire as he spoke. Hu Qiusheng originally hated Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling. After listening to Yang Jian's narration, he looked at Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling with even more disgust. Tan Xiu, last month's monthly test results have all been calculated. Do you know what your total score is this time? 37 points. Hu Qiusheng's eyes locked on Tan Xiu as he asked sternly. 37 points. The total score of the paper is 750 points, but you only gave me 37 points. You're the last in the whole grade. Do you know how many people have laughed at me because of this? If it wasn't for your mother who knelt down and begged me many times, do you think I would be willing to let you stay in this class? Hu Qiusheng shouted at Tan Xiu loudly. Every time, you promised me that you would study hard and strive to get good results in the next test. But every time the results are out, you're always at the bottom, and your results are getting worse and worse. Tan Xiu, I've already submitted an application to the headmaster's office to either expel you or transfer you to another class. Anyway, it's impossible for our class to continue taking you in. Otherwise, I'd rather resign from my position as the class teacher. At the end of his speech, Hu Qiusheng was almost roaring at Tan Xiu. The muscles on his face were extremely distorted, and his eyes became bloodshot, as if Tan Xiu had done something unforgivable. In the face of Hu Qiusheng's scolding and abuse, Tan Xiu's lips squirmed a little. He wanted to explain, but after staring at Hu Qiusheng for a moment, Tan Xiu gave up on defending himself. Instead, he stood there quietly and let Hu Qiusheng scold him. On the other hand, Yuan Chuling seemed to have suffered a great insult. His face was red, and his body was twisting uneasily. He opened his mouth several times to speak up for Tan Xiu, but in the end, he was intimidated by Hu Qiusheng and did not dare to make a sound. After scolding Tan Xiu for nearly 10 minutes, the anger in Hu Qiusheng's heart was almost vented, and then his eyes fell on Yuan Chuling. When Hu Qiusheng saw the faintly discernible sarcastic smile at the corner of Yuan Chuling's mouth, he decisively chose to ignore Yuan Chuling's existence and began to criticize the other poorer students in the class. It was not until the bell for the end of the morning self-study session rang that Hu Qiusheng ended his lecture and quickly left. Although Hu Qiusheng left, the atmosphere in the classroom was indescribably dull. Except for a few people who could not help but go out to the toilet, most of the students were in the classroom revising the test papers. Chapter 7. Tan Xiu's gaze also fell on his desk. On Tan Xiu's desk, the test papers alone were 2 feet high, and there were even more reference books. In fact, it was not only Tan Xiu's desk that was like this. Looking around, all the desks in the classroom were the same. If one had to find a difference, it would be that the books and test papers on Tan Xiu's desk were almost brand new, and they were placed quite neatly. The test papers and books on the desks of other students were basically piled up randomly, looking very messy. Tan Xiu casually pulled out a few test papers and looked at them. he found that he could not understand most of the questions. The bright red zeros on the test papers made him blush. It seems that before I solve the problem of cultivation, I have to solve the problem of studying first. Otherwise, if I really get kicked out of school because of my grades, my mother will definitely be very upset, Tenshio muttered softly, and then took out a book from the desk and carefully browsed through it. After his soul was damaged, although Tenshio's intelligence was damaged on Earth, his learning attitude was extremely upright. The teaching materials from the first to the third year of high school were neatly arranged in the desk, so Tenshio did not have to bother to collect teaching materials. Because of his single-parent family, Tenshio was very obedient since he was young, and he was especially diligent in his studies. From elementary school to junior high school, Tenshio had always played the role of a top student. In the junior high school entrance exam, Tenshio was admitted to Xingqing No. 1 high school with the best results in the city. During the first year of high school, Tenshio had always occupied the first place in all the exams. However, in a car accident in the first half of the second year of high school, Tenshio's soul was damaged. His memory and comprehension plummeted, and he would often be distracted. No matter how hard he tried, he could not keep up with the progress of the class. As a result, his grades continued to drop, and he gradually became the last in his grade. If Tenshio wanted to improve his grades, not only did he need to self-study the contents of the second and third year of high school, he also had to relearn the contents before the second year of high school. If it was the previous Tenshio, it was almost impossible to get back the glory that belonged to him in a short period of 3 months. Of course, this was not a problem at all for the current Tenshio. Boss, don't waste your effort. We brothers are not cut out for studying, no matter how hard we work. Tenshio had only flipped a few pages of the book when he felt a weight on his shoulder. Then, a low voice sounded in his ear. The person who spoke was naturally Tenshio's deskmate, Yuan Chuling. Yuan Chuling thought that Tenshio could not help but flip through the textbook because he was stimulated by Hu Qiusheng's words, so he could not help but comfort him. Yuan Chuling was one of Tenshio's rare good friends in school. The two could be considered brothers in hardship. Yuan Chuling's grades were very good when he entered school. However, in the second half of high school, Yuan Chuling's parents got divorced. Then, Yuan Chuling began to play truant, fight, get into puppy love, and even quit his exams. In an instant, he turned from a good student with excellent grades into a bad student that the teachers hated. 2 years had passed. Although Yuan Chuling had accepted the fact that his parents had divorced, the damage caused by his parents was irreparable. His enthusiasm for studying was gone forever. Fatty, let's study hard, or else. Tenshio could not continue his sentence. The reason why he was willing to go back to school to study was to fulfill his mother's wish. However, Yuan Chuling hated his parents to the core. Naturally, he would do whatever his parents wanted him to do. AI, forget it. Our situations are different. You should study hard and don't let Auntie down. I will be like this for the rest of my life. Seeing that Tenshio wanted to say something but stopped, the smile on Yuan Chuling's face gradually froze. His mood instantly became depressed. Fatty, since you insist on coming to school on time every day, it shows that deep in your heart, you still love to study. You deliberately gave up on yourself just to make uncle and auntie feel pain and regret, right? Tenshio stared at Yuan Chuling and asked word by word. Hearing Tenshio's words, the expression on Yuan Chuling's face changed dramatically. Finally, he guiltily avoided Tenshio's gaze. Fatty, although I don't know why uncle and auntie divorced, I have seen uncle and auntie's love for you for 2 years. They divorced not because they don't love you, but because they are not suitable for you. If you keep giving up on yourself like this, you will suffer, and they will also suffer. Why do you have to do this? Seeing that Yuan Chuling had listened to his words, Tenshio struck while the iron was hot and said. If the group of supremes in the immortal world saw that Tenshio was trying so hard to persuade an ant in the mortal world, their jaws would definitely drop to the ground. Because the immortal world's Tenshio was too arrogant. Even to his confidants and best friends, he was too lazy to say half a word. For strangers, he was even more indifferent. However, today, Yuan Chuling's act of standing up for justice at the critical moment really touched Tan Xiu, making Tan Xiu recognize and accept this friend from the bottom of his heart. Tan Xiu had nothing now. His family was so poor that they couldn't even afford to eat, and his academic performance was a mess. He was even suspected to be mentally retarded. Under such circumstances, Yuan Chuling was still willing to help him and protect him. This could only mean that Yuan Chuling really regarded Tan Xiu as a true friend. I also know that they have their own difficulties in the divorce, but I still can't get over it. After a moment of silence, Yuan Chuling said with a bitter expression. Sai, let's not talk about me. Previously, Chiu Lohu said that he would kick you out of this class or even out of the school. Why do I feel that you're not worried about this at all? Yuan Chuling didn't want to continue talking about his parents' divorce, so he simply changed the topic. My grades are really too bad. It's normal for Chiu Lohu to be so agitated. Besides, don't you feel that this class is completely inhumane? Maybe it's better to change the environment. Tan Xiu smiled noncommittally. He didn't take this matter to heart at all. Why do I feel that you seem to be a different person today? Hearing Tan Xiu's answer, Yuan Chuling almost thought that there was something wrong with his ears. He couldn't help but look at Tan Xiu from head to toe. Slowly, Tan Xiu's eyes became brighter and brighter. His face also showed a look of excitement. He asked nervously, Your brain has become more intelligent. That's right, my brain has now returned to normal. Thank you for taking care of me for the past 2 years. In order to thank you for taking care of me, I have decided to hand over the throne of the last place in the class. Seeing the sincere smile on Yuan Chuling's face, Tan Xiu's heart warmed. He punched Tan Xiu's chest and said with a face full of smiles. Damn, I'm really too happy. Let's go, I'll buy you a drink. This matter must be celebrated. His own guess was confirmed. Yuan Chuling couldn't help but be overjoyed. He grabbed Tan Xiu's arm and walked out of the classroom. He completely ignored Tan Xiu's teasing and ignored the crisp sound of the bell ringing for class. Tan Xiu wanted to resist, but Yuan Chuling's body size was 3 times his. Yuan Chuling's strength was not something he could contend with. You two stop. It's time for class. Go back to your seats. Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling had just walked to the classroom door when they were blocked by Hu Qiusheng. Yuan Chuling obviously didn't expect Hu Qiusheng to return. He couldn't help but be stunned. Then he quickly let go of Tan Xiu's arm and looked at Tan Xiu with an apologetic gaze. One must know that in the past year, although Yuan Chuling's academic performance was not ideal, but he was known to be a well-behaved child in terms of academic discipline. He had never skipped classes, and he had never been late for class. But today, he was pulled by Yuan Chuling to skip class, so Yuan Chuling naturally felt apologetic. Teacher Hu, Tan Xiu isn't feeling well. I'll accompany him to the infirmary. Can I ask for half an hour's leave from you? Yuan Chuling rolled his eyes and immediately spouted nonsense. Hu Qiusheng frowned when he heard that. His sharp eyes swept over Tan Xiu and said with a mocking expression, Yuan Chuling, do you need me to send Tan Xiu to the infirmary with you? There's no need to trouble Teacher Hu. We'll hold on for a while and go to the infirmary during the break. Hearing the bone-chilling tone in Hu Qiusheng's words, Yuan Chuling hurriedly shook his head and pulled Tan Xiu back to their seats. Seeing that Yuan Chuling and Tan Xiu returned to their seats, Hu Qiusheng also slowly walked to the podium. Following a light cough from Hu Qiusheng, the classroom instantly became silent. After the discussion between the principal's office and the grade group, Tan Xiu will no longer be a student of Class 5. In the next 3 months, Tan Xiu will be studying in Class 10. Hu Qiusheng glanced at Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling's direction as he read the document in his hand in a sonorous and forceful tone. Hearing Hu Qiusheng's reading, Tan Xiu's heart suddenly shrank and his face turned pale. Although he said that he didn't care, being kicked out of the class and leaving the class on his own were two completely different concepts. Now that Hu Qiusheng didn't care about Tan Xiu's dignity and feelings and read out the document in front of the whole class, it was tantamount to giving a hard slap to Tan Xiu's face, making Tan Xiu feel indescribable anger and discomfort. Yuan Chuling also didn't expect that Hu Qiusheng stopped him and Tan Xiu to actually read out the document to deal with Tan Xiu. He was so angry that he was panting and his face was also red. But after glancing at Tan Xiu's pale face, he forced himself not to add to the chaos. This is really great. With Tan Xiu gone, the average score of our class will definitely go up. I've calculated carefully. If Tan Xiu gives up on the exam, the average score of our class 5 should be the highest among the top classes. It's because of Tan Xiu that our average score is pulled down by a lot. After Hu Qiusheng finished reading out the document, there was a short moment of silence in the classroom, followed by a burst of thunderous applause. Some students even cheered loudly. Hearing the discussion in the classroom, Yuan Chuling also clenched his fists tightly. On the contrary, Tan Xiu himself acted as if nothing had happened. His face was as calm as an ancient well, and his expression didn't change at all. After a moment of silence, Yuan Chuling suddenly stood up and loudly requested, "Teacher Hu, Tan Xiu's hidden injuries caused by the car accident have already healed. His grades will improve very soon. Please tell the principal's office to withdraw this document." After a moment of silence, Yuan Chuling suddenly stood up and loudly requested, "I've heard this kind of guarantee many times. I won't believe any guarantee from you or Tan Xiu again. Moreover, the document jointly issued by the principal's office and the year group can't be changed or withdrawn at will. I also don't believe that Tan Xiu has the ability to improve his grades in a short period of 3 months." Hu Qiusheng stared at Yuan Chuling for a moment and calmly responded. Chapter 8. While Hu Qiusheng was speaking, his eyes were fixed on Tan Xiu, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, revealing a trace of sarcasm. Hu Qiusheng initially felt sorry for the decline of Tan Xiu's grades. After all, Tan Xiu's grades were the highest in the city when he entered high school. Hu Qiusheng spent a lot of effort to snatch Tan Xiu into his class. During the first year of high school, Tan Xiu did indeed make Hu Qiusheng proud. Whether it was a big or small exam or a competition, Tan Xiu always got good grades. But after a car accident in the second year of high school, everything changed. Although Tan Xiu was still as eager to learn as ever, Tan Xiu always learned later and then forgot the front, and his exam results were getting worse and worse. Moreover, as Tan Xiu's grades declined, things like copying homework, cheating on exams, and fighting also happened to Tan Xiu one after another. Although Hu Qiusheng did not investigate the truth of these things, when Tan Xiu's grades became hopeless, Tan Xiu was no longer in the scope of Hu Qiusheng's attention. "Teacher Hu, if you insist on driving Tan Xiu out of the class, I will apply to study in class 10 with Tan Xiu." Yuan Chuling stubbornly stared at Hu Qiusheng. When he found that Hu Qiusheng had made up his mind and would not take back the documents, he said in a clear voice. Hearing Yuan Chuling's words, Tan Xiu, who was silently packing his things, paused and looked at Yuan Chuling with eyes full of surprise. Tan Xiu knew that Yuan Chuling's situation was completely different from his. Even if Yuan Chuling's grades declined, Yuan Chuling's parents had too much power in Star City. As long as Yuan Chuling did not want to leave Class 1, no one could force Yuan Chuling to leave Class 1. This was also the reason why Hu Qiusheng did not want to offend Yuan Chuling. "Yuan Chuling, regarding your transfer, I will ask your parents for their opinion. If your parents agree, I will not stop them." Hu Qiusheng saw Yuan Chuling repeatedly provoking his prestige for Tan Xiu. He frowned and said in a displeased tone, "Now please sit down, we are about to start the class." Yuan Chuling obviously did not expect Hu Qiusheng to agree to his request so readily. For a moment, he could not help but stare blankly. Only when Tan Xiu pulled him did he slowly sit down. In just a few minutes, Tan Xiu had cleaned up all the things on his desk and then got up and walked out of the classroom. "Boss, where are you going?" Yuan Chuling was still thinking about how to make Tan Xiu stay in class 1 and did not expect Tan Xiu to do such a thing. He could not help but exclaim. Going to where I should go. Tan Xiu waved the bag in his hand at Yuan Chuling with a bright smile on his face. Yuan Chuling's exclamation startled Hu Qiusheng, who was writing on the blackboard. When Hu Qiusheng saw that Tan Xiu was about to reach the classroom door, he could not help but punch the podium. His face was full of anger. Tan Xiu, it is class time now. Who allowed you to walk around as you please? Qiu Lohu, I am no longer a student in this class. Why do you still care about me? Tan Xiu stared coldly at Hu Qiusheng for a moment and a playful smile appeared on his face. During the morning self-study session, when Hu Qiusheng pointed at Tan Xiu and scolded him, Tan Xiu did not say a word. When Hu Qiusheng announced that Tan Xiu would be expelled from class, Tan Xiu also did not say a word. This did not mean that Tan Xiu did not have a temper. It was just that he did not want to argue with Hu Qiusheng. If Hu Qiusheng had allowed Tan Xiu to walk out of the classroom, Tan Xiu would not have taken the initiative to provoke Hu Qiusheng. After all, Hu Qiusheng had taught Tan Xiu for more than 2 years and was Tan Xiu's homeroom teacher. Tan Xiu did not want to be known as a disrespectful student. However, Hu Qiusheng just had to show off and scold Tan Xiu. Thinking of the many insults Hu Qiusheng had given to him and his mother in the past year, Tan Xiu naturally could not bear it anymore. After saying that, Tan Xiu strode out of the classroom without giving Hu Qiusheng a chance to respond. What Tan Xiu did not know was that his Qiu Lohu not only stunned Hu Qiusheng, but also stunned the whole class. Although all the students in the class secretly called Hu Qiusheng Qiu Lohu, no one dared to call out this nickname in public, and no one dared to mention this nickname in front of Hu Qiusheng. Because no one dared to bear the thunderous wrath of Hu Qiusheng. Rebel, I don't believe that I can't deal with you. After spending a long time, Hu Qiusheng finally calmed down. At this time, Tan Xiu had long disappeared, and he could not help but tremble with anger. Qiu Lohu, I'll take it that you've agreed to study in class 10, bye-bye. Also, before I leave, let me give you a word of advice. Letting Tan Xiu leave this class is the stupidest thing you've ever done in your life, you'll definitely regret it. Just as Hu Qiusheng was about to leave the classroom to chase after Tan Xiu, another voice rang out in the classroom. Hu Qiusheng looked towards the source of the voice. It was Yuan Chuling carrying his desk and chair out of the classroom, not forgetting to wink at him as he walked. Yuan Chuling, you, don't even think about coming back after you leave. Thinking of Yuan Chuling's parents' warning, Hu Qiusheng could not help but threaten him. Qiu Lohu, since I've never thought about coming back after leaving, you won't come back even if you beg me in the future. Seeing Hu Qiusheng being angered to the point that he was like a Buddha rising to the heavens, Yuan Chuling felt indescribably carefree in his heart, and his footsteps became even more cheerful. Soon, Yuan Chuling's figure disappeared from Hu Qiusheng's sight. Facing Yuan Chuling, Hu Qiusheng did not say any harsh words, because he knew Yuan Chuling's situation very well. Any harsh words would be useless against Yuan Chuling, and might even cause him to be humiliated. When Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling left the classroom one after the other, Hu Qiusheng, whose prestige had been seriously challenged, could no longer continue to explain the analysis of the test papers. Absent-mindedly throwing down a sentence, Hu Qiusheng hurriedly left the classroom and rushed to the principal's office. Principal Wei, I strongly request for Tan Xiu to be expelled. Not only is Tan Xiu's academic performance poor, but he also has no respect for his elders and corrupts the academic atmosphere. If we continue to tolerate such a person in the school, it will only bring shame to the school. In the principal's office, Hu Qiusheng loudly pleaded after narrating what had just happened in the classroom with a lot of embellishments. Old Hu, I also want to expel Tan Xiu, but it's not like you don't know that Miss Han has always been protecting Tan Xiu. Miss Han has already compromised with you, and let you expel Tan Xiu from the top class. If you continue to make things difficult for Tan Xiu, it will be extremely difficult to expel Tan Xiu from the school. Wei Zhentai unhurriedly helped Hu Qiusheng pour a cup of tea, and then said with a smile. But. Hearing Wei Jintai's words, Hu Qiusheng only felt flustered in his heart, and didn't know what to say. Hu Qiusheng really couldn't understand why the teacher in charge of Class 10, Han Qinggu, would protect Tan Xiu. If it wasn't for Han Qinggu protecting Tan Xiu, as early as a year ago when Tan Xiu's grades dropped, Hu Qiusheng would have expelled Tan Xiu from his own class. As for agreeing to Tan Xiu's mother and son's bitter pleas, Hu Qiusheng only did them a favor at little cost. Principal Wei, do you know why Miss Han is so protective of Tan Xiu? I have studied Tan Xiu's personal history, family members, and main social relations over and over again countless times, but I haven't found any relationship between Tan Xiu and Miss Han. Moreover, I have never seen Miss Han and Tan Xiu have any contact at school. Hu Qiusheng asked puzzledly. Logically speaking, Hu Qiusheng was the teacher in charge of the key class, and was also a teacher who had been teaching at one middle school for nearly 20 years, while Han Qinggu was the teacher in charge of the common class, and had just entered the school for more than a year. Hu Qiusheng could completely not put Han Qinggu in his eyes. In fact, Hu Qiusheng didn't dare to speak loudly in front of Han Qinggu, and his attitude must be respectful. Not only Hu Qiusheng, but almost all the teachers in the school were trembling with fear in front of Han Qinggu, as if they were walking on thin ice, including Principal Wei Jintai. The reason was very simple. Han Qinggu's father, Han Fu, was the director of Star City's Education Bureau. Han Fu had a daughter when he was old, and he doted on Han Qinggu very much. Therefore, as long as the teachers of one middle school wanted to continue to improve, or wanted to continue to work in the teaching profession, they didn't dare to offend Han Qinggu. Instead, they had to curry favor with Han Qinggu in every possible way. Old Hu, is the relationship between Tan Xiu and Miss Han that important? As long as Miss Han protects Tan Xiu, you can forget about driving Tan Xiu out of the school. In fact, it's not only you who wants to drive Tan Xiu out of the school. This morning, I also received a call from another person, and the other party also wants to drive Tan Xiu out of the school. You absolutely cannot imagine who that person is. Wei Jintai looked at Hu Qiusheng with a smile that wasn't a smile as he softly said. Who? Wei Jintai's words successfully attracted Hu Qiusheng's attention, and he couldn't help but ask. Shangguan Real Estate's chairman, Su Shangguan. Wei Jintai said in a deep voice. Su Shangguan. In order for his son to enter one middle school, he donated a dormitory building to the school. How did Tan Xiu offend him? No, Tan Xiu and him are people from two completely different worlds. Could it be that Tan Xiu had a conflict with his son, Su Xiangfei? Hearing the name Su Shangguan's deeds instantly emerged in Hu Qiusheng's mind. Old Hu, didn't you say that you have studied the list of Tan Xiu's family members countless times? Could it be that you don't know the name of Tan Xiu's mother? Hearing Hu Qiusheng's words, Wei Jintai's face revealed a suspicious expression. Tan Xiu's mother. Hu Qiusheng didn't know why Wei Jintai would ask such a question, but he still remembered the ordinary woman who knelt before him many times. The next moment, Hu Qiusheng's pupils suddenly shrank, and he cried out involuntarily, Principal, you can't be trying to tell me that Su Lingyun and Su Shangguan are relatives, right? That's not right. If Su Lingyun and Su Shangguan are relatives, how could Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu be so poor that they can't even pay for school fees? As long as Su Shangguan is willing to let out a little bit of money, it would be enough for Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu and their son to not have to worry about food and clothing. Hu Qiusheng realized that he was confused. These things are not within the scope of our research. Wei Jintai didn't admit Hu Qiusheng's guess, nor did he refute Hu Qiusheng's guess. Instead, he continued to say, although Su Shangguan has made great contributions to the school, Miss Han is supporting Tan Xiu, so I naturally won't satisfy his rude request. However, I agree to transfer Tan Xiu to Class 10. I think he should be satisfied. After listening to the principal's words, Hu Qiusheng's mouth couldn't help but twitch fiercely. Hu Qiusheng had wanted to kick Tan Xiu out of his class for a long time. He had mentioned this matter to the principal's office and the grade team more than once, but the principal's office and the grade team had been playing Tai Chi with him. Today, the principal's office and the grade team agreed to transfer Tan Xiao out of the class. Hu Qiusheng thought that his long-term persistence had won him the victory, but he didn't expect that Su Shangwen was also adding fuel to the fire. He had benefited from Su Shangwen's glory. Thinking of Tan Xiao's mocking eyes and words before Yuan Chuling left the classroom today, Hu Qiusheng suddenly realized that he had won today. Chapter 9. Boss, why are you standing at the door of the classroom? When Yuan Chuling carried the table and chair to the outside of Class 10's classroom, he found Tan Xiao standing quietly in the corridor and didn't enter the classroom. He couldn't help but ask curiously. With Qiu Lohu's personality, he must have read the punishment documents to the class as soon as they came out. I guess Class 10 doesn't know that I'm coming, so he wants to wait for Miss Han to come before going in. If I go in now, I'll disturb everyone's study. Tan Xiao saw the table and chair in Yuan Chuling's hands. He couldn't help but be stunned, but he still answered Yuan Chuling's question. Study? Yuan Chuling glanced at the movement in the classroom through the window. He was instantly amused. Study my ass, do you think Class 10 is a top class? Look at how noisy they are, it seems that they can't wait for us to go in and play with them. After saying this, Yuan Chuling wanted to push the door open and enter. Fatty, I appreciate your good intentions, but you should go back. Class 5 is the most suitable place for you. Coming here will only be a waste of time for you. Tang Xiao put his arm around Yuan Chuling's shoulder and said with a sincere expression. No, I heard that the people in Class 10 are all lawless devils. I'm afraid that you'll be at a disadvantage here. I have to stay and protect you. Yuan Chuling's eyes flashed a touch of determination. When it comes to fighting, I've never been afraid of anyone since I was a child. Even in the entire Shuangqing province, I can do whatever I want. Hearing Yuan Chuling's words, Tan Xiao couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yuan Chuling's parents were originally successful businessmen with assets of over 100 million, but Yuan Chuling lived a simple life and was extremely low-key, so that Tan Xiao almost forgot Yuan Chuling's identity. Fatty, you can come to Class 10 to study, but you have to promise to concentrate on your studies for the last 3 months. You can't give up on yourself like before, or else you can go back to Class 5. After a moment of silence, Tang Xiao said with a sincere tone. When Yuan Chuling heard that Tan Xiao asked him to study hard, he subconsciously wanted to shake his head and refuse, but seeing Tan Xiao's serious look, he had to forcibly suppress the impulse. After a fierce struggle in his heart for a long time, Yuan Chuling looked up and said, Boss, you're right, it's not that I don't want to study, I gave up purely to take revenge on my parents. I also don't want my life to be ruined like this, and I'm even more unwilling to be a bad student. Since Boss wants to sprint in the last few months, then I'll accompany Boss in the final sprint. Hey, are you 2 students in this class? Why are you standing at the door and not going in? When Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling were engrossed in their conversation, a girl ran to the classroom door while panting. She curiously glanced at Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling, and called out in a crisp voice. The girl had a neck-length short hair, and her hairstyle was very neat, straight and elegant. The low-key coffee-colored hair made the whole style look fashionable, refreshing and full of vitality, and still didn't lose the elegant demeanor of a student. Yuan Chuling only glanced at the girl, and then his eyes went straight. Even Tan Xiao was moved by the girl's exquisite appearance and sunny smile. The girls in Class 5 either wore thick glasses or had 2 ponytails, and because of the pressure of studying, they looked lethargic. Not to mention dyeing their hair, they couldn't even take the initiative to greet others. Hello beautiful, I'm Yuan Chuling, and this is my good friend Tan Xiao. We used to be in Class 5, but from today onwards, we're classmates. After a moment of absent-mindedness, Yuan Chuling quickly extended his meaty hand to the short-haired girl. I transferred here about a month ago, he said. My name is Qing Yannan, nice to meet you. Qing Yannan smiled generously, and then extended her hand to Yuan Chuling. You should be waiting for the teacher, I'll go into the classroom first. Qing Yannan waved her hand to Tan Xiao, and then reached out to push the door. Seeing Qing Yannan's action of pushing the door, Tan Xiu's heart couldn't help but rise to his throat. After his soul was restored, Tan Xiu's senses and brain operated faster than ordinary people. Tan Xiu clearly found that when he arrived outside the classroom of Class 10, the students of Class 10 all looked at him with an excited expression, as if he was their prey. This situation made Tan Xiu immediately vigilant. Tan Xiu just stood outside the window for a moment, his hearing far superior to ordinary people caught all the whispers in the classroom, and then faintly knew what was going on. It turned out that the students of Class 10 used brooms and dustpans to arrange a trap above the classroom door. As long as someone opened the classroom door, the brooms and dustpans would hit their body. Knowing that there was such a trap, Tan Xiu naturally would not walk into the trap. He simply stood outside the classroom waiting for the teacher to arrive, and at the same time wanted to see how the students of Class 10 would end up if the teacher came. When Qing Yannan arrived, Tan Xiu heard suppressed cheers coming from the classroom, and at the same time, everyone's face also revealed an excited and expectant look. It was also at this time that Tan Xiu realized that this trap may be arranged for Qing Yannan. Qing Yannan classmate, are you often late for class? Tan Xiu couldn't bear to see Qing Yannan being attacked by brooms and dustpans, so he deliberately interrupted Qing Yannan's action of pushing the door. Why do you ask like this? Qing Yannan's hand movement stagnated, looking at Tan Xiu's eyes full of curiosity. The next moment, Qing Yannan's face revealed a look of understanding, then she slowly took 2 steps back, then slightly lifted her slender legs, and then kicked the classroom door. With a muffled bang sound, Quang Dang sound was incessant, and then there was dust flying everywhere. When Yuan Chuling saw the brooms and dustpans all over the floor, he couldn't help but be stunned, and at the same time, he sucked in a breath of cold air, secretly rejoicing that he didn't rashly open the classroom door. Fuck, this group of grandsons from Class 10 is really sinister, actually playing such a big game. After being stunned for a long time, Yuan Chuling finally reacted to what was going on, and he couldn't help but mutter. Tan Xiu's gaze was focused on Qing Yannan, because Qing Yannan's reaction just now was 2 out of Tan Xiu's expectations, and the last movement of Qing Yannan's leg, as well as the arc and strength of the kick, gave Tan Xiu a kind of amazing feeling. Tan Xiu, Yuan Chuling, you don't have to be afraid, this trap of theirs is aimed at me, it has nothing to do with you. Seeing Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling's dumbfounded expression, Qing Yannan smiled, and softly comforted them, you two are very good, in the future, I will protect you in class. After Qing Yannan finished speaking, she strode into the classroom. Tan Xiu clearly heard that after Qing Yannan successfully broke the trap, the sound of sighs in the classroom rose and fell, followed by several people sitting in front of the classroom quickly cleaning up the brooms and dustpans at the door, as if nothing had happened before. Almost as soon as the students in the classroom sat down, a very rhythmic, ta-ta sound came from outside the corridor. Obviously someone wearing high heels was walking over. Looking towards the direction of the footsteps, a woman dressed in a typical professional dress was walking towards the classroom of Class 10. She wore a black and white checkered short-sleeved shirt, revealing her snow-white arms, a light red tube skirt, and bright silk stockings. The woman had a head full of long and straight hair, elegant and moving. Her oval face was the standard of a beauty, her forehead was smooth, her skin was as white as snow, and her eyes were deep and enchanting. The bridge of her nose was straight, and the curve of her lips was abnormally gentle and beautiful. It was so tender that people wanted to take a bite out of it. She had a sharp and round chin. In short, it was a flawless face. If Qing Yannan's beauty before was as delicate and proud as a wintersweet, then the woman in front of him was like a violet, elegant and noble, low-key and stunning. Tan Xiu, you came so soon, I was going to pick you up from Class 5 after this class. When Tan Xiu stared at the woman in a daze, the woman's cherry lips slightly opened, revealing a mouthful of white teeth, and greeted with a smile on her face. Her voice was like the chirping of an oriole, pleasant to the ear. Han. Miss Han. Hearing Han Qingwu's greeting, Tan Xiu came back to his senses, and he greeted her with a blushing face. The reason why Tan Xiu stared at Han Qingwu in a daze was not because he was fascinated by Han Qingwu's appearance, but because Han Qingwu's appearance was somewhat similar to his confidant in the immortal world, which made him lose his mind for a moment. If he hadn't confirmed that Han Qingwu in front of him didn't have any spiritual power, Tan Xiu almost thought that it was his confidant in the immortal world who had followed him to Earth. Tan Xiu, about your matter, the principal's office and the grade team have communicated with me. If you don't mind Class 10, you will have to spend the next few months with Miss Han. Han Qingwu seemed to be very satisfied with Tan Xiu's reaction, and the smile on her face became even wider. Miss Han, please take care of me. Quietly staring at Han Qingwu for a moment, Tan Xiu adjusted his mood. Tan Xiu faintly felt that Han Qingwu's attitude towards him was too warm, but he really couldn't remember what intersection he had with Han Qingwu, plus Han Qingwu's appearance was too similar to that of his confidant in the immortal world, which made him feel uncomfortable, so he simply chose to avoid it. Tan Xiu classmate is too polite. I entered Xingqing No. 1 high school with the best results in the city. I still hope that you can create a miracle for me during the college entrance examination. Han Qingwu didn't notice Tan Xiu's abnormality, and she softly encouraged him. Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu touched his nose and fell into silence. Miss Han, Tan Xiu and I are best friends in Class 5. I also applied to join Class 10 to study. I also asked Miss Han to take me in. Yuan Chuling saw that Han Qingwu's gaze has been staying on Tan Xiu, and didn't even glance at him, and waited with great difficulty until Han Qingwu and Tan Xiu were almost done talking. He quickly shouted from the side. Chapter 10. Hearing Yuan Chuling's voice, Han Qingwu finally noticed Yuan Chuling's existence. Seeing that Yuan Chuling actually moved the tables and chairs over, she suddenly snorted, and a bright smile bloomed on her face. Her round and full chest also undulated up and down, making Yuan Chuling's eyes instantly stare. As long as teacher who doesn't stop me, I naturally welcome you. Staring at Yuan Chuling for a moment, and then looking at Tan Xiu next to him, Han Qingwu nodded with a light smile and said, You and Tan Xiu sit at the back of the classroom, I will introduce you to everyone. Seeing that Han Qingwu was willing to take him in, Yuan Chuling couldn't help but be overjoyed, and then he rushed into the classroom first. After Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling sat down, Han Qingwu introduced Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling. When Han Qingwu introduced Tan Xiu, there was an obvious burst of hissing in the class, and at the same time, it was accompanied by whispers of discussion. Tan Xiu clearly turned a deaf ear to the surrounding discussion, but Yuan Chuling was so angry that his face turned ashen. If it wasn't for Tan Xiu tightly holding onto the corner of his clothes, he would have already jumped up. Fortunately, Han Qingwu's ability to control the situation was very strong. She just lightly coughed, and the classroom returned to silence. Looking at Tan Xiu apologetically, Han Qingwu let everyone take out the monthly test papers, and then began to explain one by one. To Tan Xiu's surprise, Han Qingwu actually taught in English, and there was no Chinese explanation throughout the whole process. As a result, even after Han Qingwu explained for a few minutes, Tan Xiu still couldn't understand a word. It wasn't that Tan Xiu's English was poor, nor was it that Tan Xiu's hearing was poor. It was purely because he wasn't used to it, and he didn't expect that there would be a high school teacher who taught the whole class in English. Yuan Chuling was also listening to the clouds. He wanted to interrupt Han Qingwu or ask the students next to him what was going on, but seeing that the whole class was listening with relish, he had to force himself to listen to the class. 3 minutes later, Tan Xiu dejectedly gave up listening to the class, and then took out the English dictionary to look at it. This was because Tan Xiu could clearly hear every word that Han Qingwu said, but there was no way for him to understand every word that Han Qingwu said. Realizing that his vocabulary was too poor, Tan Xiu decided to enrich his vocabulary first. Seeing that Tan Xiu was no longer listening to the class attentively, but flipping through the dictionary, Yuan Chuling was suddenly happy. He immediately followed suit, took out a thick Oxford dictionary, and pretended to flip through it. Although Han Qingwu was seriously explaining the test paper, her attention was always on Tan Xiu. When Han Qinggu found that Tan Xiu only persisted for less than 10 minutes and then gave up listening to the class, her face couldn't help but show a look of disappointment, and her originally high spirits instantly fell to the bottom. Until the end of the class, Tan Xiu's head was buried in the English dictionary, and he never looked up. Han Qingwu's eyes swept over Tan Xiu several times, and in the end, she was completely disappointed. Almost as soon as the bell rang, Han Qingwu hurriedly left the classroom. With Han Qingwu's departure, the previously quiet classroom instantly boiled up. Listening to Miss Han's class is really painful and happy. We can't understand what she's talking about at all. In order not to let Miss Han down, we have to pretend to understand what we don't understand. Who said it wasn't? Even if we can't understand anything, just listening to Miss Han's voice is a kind of enjoyment, not to mention that we can also see Miss Han's graceful figure. Hey, how can those two guys be so unromantic? Even when they are in Miss Han's class, they are also absent-minded. At the beginning, the students of Class 10 were still exchanging their listening experience, but when they inadvertently saw the two newcomers, Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling, unexpectedly holding an English dictionary and reading, they suddenly became angry. One by one, they surrounded Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling with righteous indignation. When Yuan Chuling heard the students in the class discussing their listening experience, he was just about to join in the conversation. He never thought that the students of Class 10 would suddenly target him and Tan Xiu. He had a feeling of being shot lying down. Newcomer, we are talking about you, why are you pretending to be deaf? Yuan Chuling had just arrived in a new environment, he didn't want to stir up trouble, so he opened his mouth and was about to admit defeat. Unexpectedly, before Yuan Chuling had time to say anything, a strange voice rang in Yuan Chuling's ears, and at the same time, the English dictionary in his hand was also slapped to the ground. You! Yuan Chuling originally had a fiery temper, how could he endure this kind of temper? He suddenly stood up, and his breathing also became rapid. The person who provoked Yuan Chuling obviously didn't expect that Yuan Chuling's temper would explode, because Yuan Chuling's body was really too oppressive. When Yuan Chuling stood up straight, his feet staggered back a few steps, if not for the person behind him blocking, he would have directly sat on the ground. Fatty, don't forget what you said to me in the corridor. Just when Yuan Chuling was planning to kill the chicken to warn the monkey, Tan Xiu's indifferent voice suddenly rang in his ears, making Yuan Chuling withered like a frosted eggplant. Coward, people are already bullying you, yet you still cower. If you have the guts, come out and fight. Just when Yuan Chuling was about to stop, a harsh voice rang in the classroom again, making Yuan Chuling's anger that had just subsided instantly soar again. However, after glaring at the person who spoke, Yuan Chuling's face showed a strange expression, and then he immediately looked at Tan Xiu with a questioning gaze. Because the person who ridiculed him was not a stranger, but Tan Xiu's cousin, Su Xiangfei. If it was someone else, Yuan Chuling would have already slapped them, but the other party was Tan Xiu's cousin. Yuan Chuling naturally had to consult Tan Xiu's opinion. Tan Xiu also saw Su Xiangfei, only then did he remember that Su Xiangfei was studying in Class 10. Seeing Su Xiangfei's angry face, he couldn't help but laugh. Su Xiangfei, are you sure you want to continue playing the game? If you think it's more interesting, I don't mind playing with you all the time. Hearing this sentence, Su Xiangfei's body couldn't help but shiver. He subconsciously remembered the scene of being invited to the police station yesterday afternoon. At that time, Tan Xiu seemed to have said the same thing, and then things became out of control, and his family was invited to the city police station. Su Xiangfei wanted to say a tough word to fight back against Tan Xiu, but under Tan Xiu's fierce gaze, Su Xiangfei didn't dare to say anything. Yesterday afternoon, Tan Xiu left a psychological shadow on Su Xiangfei that was too deep. What are you all doing here? Are you asking for a beating? While Su Xiangfei was hesitating whether he should continue to fight with Tang Xiu or not, a crisp shout suddenly sounded behind him. Qing Yan Nan, I didn't provoke you this time. Don't meddle in other people's business. Hearing the voice behind him, Su Xiangfei responded almost reflexively. You didn't provoke me. What's with the broom and dustpan above the classroom door before class? Don't think that I can't guess that it was you. Cheng Yannan snorted coldly, then reached out and grabbed Su Xiangfei's collar. Su Xiangfei obviously didn't expect Cheng Yannan to make a move without saying anything. The moment his collar was grabbed, his face turned pale, and he shouted, "Cheng Yannan, if you touch me again, believe it or not, I will find someone from the underworld to deal with." Ah! Before Su Xiangfei's words were finished, he heard Cheng Yannan's cold snort, and then his body rose into the air and flew backward uncontrollably. A few seconds later, with a muffled bang, Su Xiangfei's body fell heavily to the ground, smashing the dust on the ground. "Cheng Yannan, you stinky bitch, you threw me next to the trash can again." Just when everyone was worried about whether Su Xiangfei would be injured, Su Xiangfei spat twice and then cursed. "If your mouth continues to be so cheap, I don't mind throwing you into the trash can next time." Cheng Yannan glared coldly at Su Xiangfei and said fiercely. Hearing Cheng Yannan's words, Su Xiangfei seemed to be choked by someone. His face turned red, and he didn't dare to say another word. Su Xiangfei, the one who stood out, was taught a lesson. The other students were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They looked at Cheng Yannan with fire in their eyes. Cheng Yannan seemed to be very satisfied with the effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. She glanced at the other students around and said loudly, "All of you remember, Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling are my good friends. In the future, if anyone dares to target them or play tricks on them, I will definitely have a good fight with him." After saying that, Cheng Yannan patted Tan Xiao's shoulder and said in a clear voice, "As a man, you must have a bit of courage. Otherwise, you will walk in this world in vain. But the two of you can rest assured. With me here, I guarantee that the two of you will not be bullied in class. If anyone dares to bully the two of you, just tell me. I will definitely help you." Cheng Yannan said without waiting for Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling to respond. Cheng Yannan's words made Su Xiangfei feel a toothache. Su Xiangfei looked at Tan Xiao with jealousy. Su Xiangfei really couldn't understand why Tan Xiao would have someone to help him every time he was in trouble. Yesterday afternoon, when he was forced into a corner at home, the police came to help him. This morning, when his father wanted to kick Tan Xiao out of school, Miss Han tried her best to protect him. Now that Tan Xiao was transferred to his class, and he wanted to teach Tan Xiao an unforgettable lesson, Cheng Yannan actually popped out. The farce came and went quickly. When the bell rang, the students around Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling dispersed and returned to their seats. At this time, Yuan Chuling still hadn't reacted to what had happened. After a long time, Yuan Chuling nudged Tan Xiao's arm and said with a narcissistic face, "Boss, did I become a little more handsome? Otherwise, why would Cheng Yannan bravely step forward to save the damsel in distress? After class, you will know if you have become more handsome when you go to the toilet." Tan Xiao glanced at Yuan Chuling and responded snappily. Hearing Tan Xiao's words, the smile on Yuan Chuling's face froze. Just when he wanted to retaliate against Tan Xiao, he found that Tan Xiao had once again turned his attention to the English dictionary. He could only give up. Chapter 11. Perhaps it was Cheng Yannan's words that shocked everyone, or perhaps it was because the college entrance examination was getting closer and closer, everyone gradually lost the mood to joke around. In the following period of time, no one bothered Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling. When his soul returned to its complete state, especially after successfully practicing the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, Tan Xiao discovered that his memory was really too terrifying. It was like a camera, as long as he glanced at any book, it would be deeply imprinted in his mind, and he would not be able to forget it even if he wanted to. Tan Xiao's memory was so amazing, his comprehension ability was also similarly difficult for ordinary people to match. It only took Tan Xiao 2 days to finish eating an English dictionary that was more than 10 centimeters thick and completely stored it in his mind. The other students, including Yuan Chuling, all thought that he only flipped through the dictionary out of boredom for 2 days. Then, it took another day for Tan Xiao to flip through all the English textbooks from year 1 to year 3, which could be considered as solving the English subject. When the entire Oxford English Dictionary and all the high school English textbooks were stored in his mind, Tan Xiu discovered that he could already completely understand Han Qingguo's English teaching, and he also had the confidence to converse in English with Han Qingguo. Then, Tan Xiu flipped through all the Chinese textbooks, and at the same time, he couldn't help but glance through all the Chinese papers and excellent essay selections on his desk from beginning to end. Then, he was surprised to find that doing the Chinese papers had completely become a kind of enjoyment for him. After solving the two subjects that required a strong memory, English and Chinese, Tan Xiu put his energy into the three subjects of physics, chemistry, and biology. Relying on his strong memory and terrifying comprehension ability, as well as his original foundation, Tan Xiu unexpectedly picked up these three subjects in 10 days. Tan Xiu enjoyed this kind of peaceful and quiet life, which was completely impossible to have in the immortal world. There was no day and night of cultivation, no endless killing, every day was a 3-point life of school, cafeteria, and dormitory. For the first time, Tan Xiu tried to devote all his time and energy to things other than cultivation. This feeling was novel and strange. However, after half a month, Tan Xiu felt bored. Because Tan Xiu suddenly found that he had nothing to learn. He could easily finish any paper on his desk and get full marks. Tan Xiu could calculate the results of any subject's Olympiad math questions, and even any theorem and formula in the textbooks, Tan Xiu could completely deduce them. With the knowledge I have now, it is more than enough to deal with the exam. As long as I am willing, it is not a problem to take back the first place that belongs to me. So, how should I spend the remaining 2 months? When Tan Xiu finished all the textbooks and papers inside and outside of his desk, Tan Xiu felt a sense of loss. When Tan Xiu's vision inadvertently fell on Su Xiangfei's body, he found that Su Xiangfei was looking at him with a resentful expression. He instantly quivered and sobered up. How could I forget such an important thing as cultivation? Although Earth is not as bloody and murderous as the immortal world, it does not require too high a martial arts value. I should at least have the ability to protect myself, right? Tan Xiu patted his head, and then decisively retrieved his huge memory bank and began to choose a cultivation technique that was suitable for him. The first cultivation technique that appeared in Tan Xiu's mind was the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Although he did not take the initiative to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis during this period of time, he discovered that ever since he unconsciously and successfully cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis in the hospital, cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis seemed to have become his instinct. Every time he fell asleep, his body would naturally cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Fortunately, this kind of subconscious cultivation was extremely slow, and would not bring any harm to Tan Xiu. Instead, it made Tan Xiu feel refreshed after waking up every day. He could clearly feel that his consciousness was becoming stronger little by little. However, thinking of the great pain he felt when he first actively cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth twitched fiercely. He decisively filtered out the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Golden Goose Art, Blue Flame Art, Ice Heart Art, there were too many cultivation techniques and combat skills for Tan Xiu to choose from. Other people were worried about not having a cultivation technique and combat skill to cultivate, but Tan Xiu was worried about which cultivation technique and combat skill he should choose to cultivate. However, Tan Xiu soon discovered that he was thinking too much. Tan Xiu had nearly tried all the knowledge and experience in his mind during these 10 days. As a result, he found that the countless secret combat skills and top-notch cultivation techniques that people in the immortal world desperately fought for were completely meaningless decorations to him. Because these cultivation techniques and combat skills were for people with extraordinary natural endowments and a good foundation to cultivate. He already possessed a good foundation as soon as he transmigrated to the immortal dimension, so he was able to rely on these cultivation techniques and combat skills to advance by leaps and bounds. His current body was extremely weak, and his cultivation aptitude was terrible. In addition, there was almost no spiritual energy on Earth, so he was completely unable to cultivate those top-notch cultivation techniques and combat skills in his mind. However, Tan Xiu was not discouraged. He began to carefully recall his memories from the depths of his memories, capturing the childhood memories from the debauchee's body that he had crossed over to. Although the double memory extraction was very difficult, but in the end, he was able to recall a few initial cultivation techniques that did not have high requirements for spiritual energy and aptitude. In the next week, Tan Xiu patiently tried the most basic and outstanding cultivation techniques of the immortal world one by one. Unfortunately, the aptitude of his body that was born in the age of chaos was too low. If placed in the immortal world, he might not even be as good as the lowest half-demon human. As time passed, after half a month, Tan Xiu's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. He gradually felt a trace of anxiety. Calm down, I must calm down. The immortal world is vast and profound. There must be a cultivation technique that is suitable for me. It's just that I haven't thought of it yet. Is there any cultivation technique that I haven't tried? Tan Xiu constantly comforted and encouraged himself like this, thinking hard in all kinds of ways. What Tan Xiu did not know was that when he suddenly stopped reading and learning, but sat in his seat every day in a daze, as if he was possessed, and even often turned a deaf ear to Yuan Chuling's questions, Yuan Chuling's heart sank, and his eyes looking at Tan Xiu were full of worry and anxiety. Not only Yuan Chuling, Han Qinggu, and Qing Yannan, who had been secretly concerned about Tan Xiu, were also very anxious. Some people were worried about Tan Xiu, but more people subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief, and at the same time began to take pleasure in his misfortune. I was scared to death. When Tang Xiu first came to our class, he was reading books or doing test papers every day. He almost never left his seat all day long. I thought that his brain had really recovered and he would be able to catch up with our grades in the last 3 months. After returning home, Su Xiangfei took off his shoes, threw his school bag, and then jumped onto the spacious and soft sofa. You mean Tan Xiu doesn't read or do test papers now? Hearing Su Xiangfei's words, Zhang Meiyun, who was watching the TV series seriously, instantly became spirited. He only pretended for half a month, and then he couldn't pretend anymore. Maybe he has the heart but the strength is not enough. He is sitting in his seat every day, and sometimes when the teacher calls his name, he will be absent-minded, which makes the teacher very angry. Su Xiangfei curled his lips and said disdainfully. Mom, you think too much. How can Tan Xiu's brain return to normal? What happened last month was definitely a coincidence. I guess we forced him too hard, so he said those words to Dad without thinking. If Tan Xiu's brain really returned to normal, would he hit Dad with his head? Sujinan peeled a pine nut and put it in her mouth, and said indifferently. When Su Shangguan recalled the scene of Tan Xiu randomly stabbing his body after he was hit, he always felt that something was wrong. Although it had been a month since the incident, Su Shangguan had never been so humiliated in more than 10 years. This was something that Su Shangguan couldn't forget even if he wanted to. Could it really be a blind cat running into a dead mouse? After thinking for a long time, Su Shangguan still couldn't think of a reason. He couldn't help but gradually believe in his family's judgment. Shangguan, don't be so paranoid. Did you believe that bitch, Su Lingyun, when she said that Tan Xiu's brain had already returned to normal? With your son monitoring Tan Xiu every day, are you still worried that he will jump out of our palms? As long as he dares to walk out of the school, even if he really did return to normal, we can make him become abnormal again. Seeing her husband's deeply worried expression, Zhang Meiyun moved closer to her husband's body and whispered in his ear. Although Su Shangguan was extremely displeased with Tan Xiu, but hearing his wife call him a bitch and a little bastard, Su Shangguan still felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. When Su Shangguan heard that his wife was actually looking for someone to deal with Tan Xiu, his heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously wanted to open his mouth to stop her, but when he thought of the scene where he was beaten into a sorry state by Tan Xiu last month, he paused. Unknowingly, a month quietly passed by. The second monthly examination of the 3rd year of high school had arrived, but at this time, Tan Xiu still hadn't found a cultivation technique that was suitable for him. It wasn't that Tan Xiu didn't want to immediately restore his cultivation in the immortal world, but that he simply couldn't do it. Compared to the immortal world, where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was extremely rich, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was too thin. When Tan Xiao was in the immortal world, he had once plundered countless cultivation techniques and combat skills, and also bought and exchanged countless inheritance and secret manuals. But on the earth where the spiritual chi was thin, Tang Xiu had tried all those cultivation techniques and combat skills, but he found that none of them could be successfully cultivated. Tan Xiu, you must work hard in this monthly examination. I just made a bet with Teacher Hu in the office, saying that if your results drop again, I will give all my next month's salary to him. If your results are no longer at the bottom of the cohort, he will give all his next month's salary to me. Whether the teacher can keep his salary all depends on you. When Han Qinggu found that Tan Xiu was still absent-minded and the exam was approaching, she had no choice but to call Tan Xiu to her office and almost begged in a coquettish manner. Hearing Han Qingwu's almost whispering voice and looking at Han Qingwu's coquettish appearance, in Tan Xiu's eyes, Han Qingwu's face gradually merged with his confidant in the immortal world, Xue Qingcheng. The scene of Xue Qingcheng's betrayal at the end made Tan Xiu, who was in a trance, flash a trace of ferocity in his eyes. He grabbed Han Qingwu's body and let her body fall involuntarily into his arms, and then fiercely bit Han Qingwu's mouth. Tan Xiu's sudden action and rough strength made Han Qingwu scream subconsciously. Chapter 12. Tan Xiu was very clear about Han Qingwu's transcendent status in the school. He had also vaguely heard about Han Qingwu's background, but he had never thought that he would have such a relationship with Han Qingwu. After knowing the truth of the matter, some of the problems that Tan Xiu could not understand in the past instantly became clear. His grades in his first year of high school were top-notch, but he did not have the chance to become a third-best student in the province. In his second year of high school, his grades were almost at the bottom, but he became a third-best student in the province. After the car accident, he had clearly received timely treatment and compensation, and later, he inexplicably received more than 100,000 yuan as a courageous Good Samaritan. There was clearly something wrong with his brain, and Hu Qiusheng also hated him to the bone, but the school did not expel him. Instead, he was allowed to stay in the top class. Even though his little uncle, Su Shangguan, took all the credit for him, making the whole family have a good impression of him, and his mother was even more grateful to him, wishing that she could take out her heart and give it to him, Tan Xiu always felt that with his little uncle, Su Shangguan's character, it was impossible for him to silently help him without taking the initiative to announce it. Miss Han, just now you said that from now on, you will always be by my side to protect me? After silently watching Han Qingwu for a moment, seeing Han Qingwu's sacred and serious expression, Tan Xiu suddenly felt that it was particularly fun. Yes. Han Qingwu was still immersed in her own emotions and did not notice anything unusual. She nodded heavily. Miss Han, you also said that you will take care of me for the rest of my life? Tan Xiu continued to ask. Yes. Han Qingwu continued to nod. Miss Han, what if I still get the last place in this year's exam? Tan Xiu asked again. I. At most, I won't ask for a month's salary. Thinking of her bet with Hu Qiusheng, Han Qingwu finally couldn't stay calm. However, she was afraid that giving Tan Xiu too much pressure would make things worse. She could only sigh helplessly. Miss Han, you must always remember what you said just now. I will take this monthly test seriously, and I promise to make Hu Qiusheng regret it so much that his intestines turn green. Tan Xiu finally couldn't bear to continue teasing Han Qingwu when he saw her frown. After saying that, Tan Xiu left, leaving Han Qingwu alone in a daze. Something's not right. When this guy was talking to me just now, it was as if he was purposely digging a hole for me to jump into. Also, the way he took advantage of me just now doesn't seem like someone with a mental problem. Yuan Chuling also mentioned to me that Tan Xiu's hidden illness from the car accident has been cured, and Tan Xiu's academic performance will soon rush up. But after my 1 month of observation, he almost didn't look up at the blackboard, and didn't listen to the teacher's lecture. He still flipped the book as before. In the last half of the month, he didn't even flip the book, and sat there all day in a daze. Han Qinggu racked her brain, yet she couldn't figure out what was going on. In the end, the scene of Tang Xiu's overbearing embrace and kiss unconsciously appeared in her mind. Her cheeks immediately flushed red, and she couldn't help but touch her face that was still faintly burning hot. In the classroom of Class 10, seeing Tang Xiu return to the classroom, Yuan Chuling couldn't help but cast a nervous look. "Boss, Miss Han didn't criticize you, right?" "No, Miss Han just encouraged me to do well in the exam." "How are your preparations?" Tang Xiu shook his head and then asked with concern. "After changing the environment, there is no previous pressure, and with Qing Yannan's protection, almost no one comes to disturb us. My learning efficiency this month is good, and I have basically grasped the knowledge of the first year of high school thoroughly. I think if I have another 2 months, I have the confidence to pass the exam." Yuan Chuling pondered for a moment and said loudly, "Junior college is not enough. Our goal is a key undergraduate or even a famous university." Tang Xiu patted Yuan Chuling's shoulder and said softly. Yuan Chuling heard this and couldn't help but roll his eyes. He really wanted to refute Tang Xiu, but thinking of Tang Xiu's situation this month, he was silent again. In the nervous anticipation of all the third-year students, the second monthly exam of the third semester of the third year officially began, and Tang Xiu also began the first exam after his soul was restored. Although it was only an ordinary monthly exam, but whether it was the third-year students or the third-year teachers, all attached great importance to it. After all, the monthly exam's question type and difficulty were completely modeled after the college entrance examination in the past years. The monthly exam's score could reflect the college entrance examination score to a great extent, and it could be regarded as a practice before the college entrance examination. Only some students at the bottom of the class who had no hope of getting a high score at all were still indifferent, and they still had a sloppy appearance every day. In each examination room, there were 2 classes of students sitting cross-legged, and they were students of the liberal arts class and science class respectively, which was very likely to eliminate the possibility of plagiarism and cheating. "Tang Xiu, don't look around, and do well in the exam. If you fight and admit defeat, and still do poorly in the exam, I will look down on you." While Tang Xiu was sizing up the candidates on his left and right, a clear and melodious voice came from behind him. It was Qing Yannan who was sitting in the back seat. "Let's do our best together." Tang Xiu smiled at Qing Yannan, and then took out his exam equipment. Tang Xiu could faintly hear people talking about him, and could also feel people pointing at him, but he didn't care. "When the results of this monthly exam are out, you guys can wait to be shocked." Tang Xiu took a deep breath, and adjusted his mentality to the best state. Soon, 2 invigilators walked into the classroom with a thick stack of test papers. The invigilators didn't immediately hand out the test papers, but glanced sharply at the classroom, and after emphasizing the exam rules, they slowly handed the test papers to each of the candidates. When they walked in front of Tang Xiu, one of the invigilators obviously paused for a moment, and then a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Seeing this, Tang Xiu couldn't help but smile bitterly, because this invigilator was his physics teacher in Class 5, Xia Mingjie. He didn't expect that he would come to invigilate his language exam. After getting the test paper, Tang Xiu didn't write it down immediately. Instead, he scanned it from the beginning to the end to make sure that there were no mistakes or missing questions. At the same time, he also went through all the knowledge points of the test in his mind. The next moment, Tang Xiu's pen moved like a dragon, and he quickly wrote down one answer after another on the test paper. In less than half an hour, Tang Xiu finished all the questions except for the essay. Everyone says that a father's love is like a mountain, then what is a mother's love like? The gentle breeze in spring, the clear spring in summer, the fruits in autumn, the sunshine in winter, or the warm light in the dark night? Please write an essay of at least 1,000 words on the topic of mother's love. After seeing the essay title, Tang Xiu was stunned for a moment, and then his emotions broke down, and his tears flowed like a fountain. When Tang Xiu was still 3 years old, Tang Xiu's father passed away, and he grew up with his mother, relying on each other. In Tan Xiu's memory, there was no father at all. It was his mother who brought him up painstakingly, and it was also his mother who taught him how to conduct himself in society. After Tan Xiu's brain had problems, it was also his mother who didn't dislike or be impatient with him, and always took care of him. There were too many memories of his mother. In the 10,000 years in the immortal world, those memories were deepened again and again, so much so that it was difficult for Tan Xiu to erase them. Tan Xiu was immersed in the memories of his mother for a long time, unable to extricate himself. He completely didn't notice that he had become the focus of the entire exam hall. Did you guys see that? The person who is crying bitterly is Tan Xiu, the one who once entered our school as the top student in the city, but now he has fallen to the bottom of the grade. Sigh, there's no need to cry even if he can't answer the question. It's too shameful. It looks like there's really something wrong with his brain. Since there's something wrong with his brain, he should take a break from school and go home. What's the point of staying in school? What if one day he suddenly explodes and injures someone? The two invigilators also noticed Tan Xiu's abnormality. In fact, they were the first to notice that Tan Xiu's emotions were abnormal, but seeing that Tan Xiu was only crying silently and did not affect the other candidates, they didn't say anything. When Tan Xiu's behavior of crying attracted more and more attention from the candidates, they wanted to remind Tan Xiu, and even drove Tan Xiu out of the exam hall. Just as one of the young invigilators angrily walked in front of Tan Xiu's seat and was about to use force, Xia Mingjie sighed softly and quickly caught up with the young invigilator to stop him. Tan Xiu, it's exam time now. Please make the best use of your time to answer the questions seriously, lest you miss the exam. Xia Mingjie gently knocked on Tan Xiu's seat and reminded him softly. After hearing Xia Mingjie's reminder, Tan Xiu realized that an hour had passed unknowingly. He had actually sat in the classroom for an hour. Seeing that there was less than half an hour left for the exam, he quickly began to write his essay. Old Xia, it's not that I want to criticize you, but with Tang Xiu's level, it won't have any effect on his performance if he sits in the exam room for a while or a little while longer. Seeing that Tan Xiu had begun to answer the questions seriously, the young invigilator, Ran Pan, emphasized the exam time and exam rules before leaving. However, he couldn't help but complain to Xia Mingjie. It's a pity for this child. If it wasn't for the car accident more than a year ago, his future would definitely be bright. Xia Mingjie looked at Tan Xiu with eyes full of sympathy and regret. Sigh, this is fate. He entered our school with the highest score in the city, but now he has fallen to the last place in his grade. The gap is too big. Thinking about Tan Xiu's situation after entering one middle school, Ran Pan couldn't help but sigh. Yeah, I still remember the speech that this child gave when he won the first prize in the Olympic physics competition. His magnanimity, ambition, and ambition at that time made even me, his teacher and advisor, feel ashamed of myself. I didn't expect him to fall into this situation. God is really jealous of such a talented person. Xia Mingjie sighed with regret. Old Xia, do you think it's possible for Tan Xiu's brain to suddenly return to normal in the last few months, and then catch up and reclaim the honor that once belonged to him? Ran Pan glanced at Tan Xiu, who was seriously writing his essay, and suddenly asked on a whim. Xia Mingjie's eyes lit up when he heard the question, but then it became gloomy. For more than a year, I have been looking forward to the day of the miracle. Unfortunately, the miracle never appeared. Now Tan Xiu has been kicked to class 10, and there are only 2 months left before the college entrance examination. Even if his brain really returns to normal, it will be difficult for his grades to catch up. In fact, Ran Pan was just joking. Seeing that Xia Mingjie was seriously discussing this issue with him, he couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile and quickly changed the topic. Chapter 13. Tan Xiu breathed a sigh of relief when he finished the language exam without any mishaps. Although he had not gotten the standard answers, Tan Xiu was confident that he could get more than 140 points in the language exam. After lunch, Tan Xiu did not return to the dormitory to rest. Instead, he left the school and went to the provincial library opposite the school. As early as half a month ago, Tan Xiu was no longer satisfied with the knowledge in the textbooks. Instead, he spent all day in the school library. Later, Tan Xiu learned that he could enter the provincial library with the school library's library card. Moreover, the number of books in the provincial library was 100 times that of the school library. Thus, he decisively abandoned the school library and lingered in the provincial library every day. Tan Xiu entered the provincial library not only to study, but also to verify the many ideas in his mind to determine the direction of his future cultivation. In the afternoon's mathematics exam, Tan Xiu handed in his test paper and left after only half an hour. Tan Xiu's action of handing in his test paper caused an uproar. One must know that the school specially increased the difficulty of the exam in order to increase the learning pressure of the third-year students. However, Tan Xiu actually handed in his test paper after half an hour. In the eyes of others, there was only one possibility. That was, Tan Xiu felt that the test paper was too difficult and directly gave up. Although this time's mathematics exam is very difficult, Tan Xiu shouldn't give up. He has let down Miss Han's trust in him. Sigh, Miss Han is definitely going to lose this time. Although she said that she doesn't care about the salary of a few thousand yuan, when I think of Hu Qiusheng's arrogant and proud smile, I feel uncomfortable. After the two invigilators watched Tan Xiu's back as he left, they could not help but whisper. After the first day of the exam, the third-year students started a heated discussion. Tan Xiu did not participate in the discussion. Instead, he repeatedly experimented and deduced the vast sea of cultivation methods in his mind. When the last cultivation method and combat skill in his mind were declared a failure, Tan Xiu's face could not help but reveal a dispirited look. Could it be that I can only cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis? But where should I go to find those rare herbs and minerals? Tan Xiu's eyebrows were almost squeezed together. Boss, I feel like I did well in this exam. It would be great if tomorrow's exam went as smoothly as today, Yuan Chuling said excitedly as he touched Tan Xiu's arm. Come on, there are still 2 months left. I believe that your results will definitely improve. Tan Xiu glanced at Yuan Chuling and said absent-mindedly. Hee, I didn't think that I would be able to pick up the knowledge I left behind after wasting so much time. Thank you for your guidance and encouragement, boss. By the way, boss, how was your exam today? Yuan Chuling smiled and asked curiously. Did I do okay? Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment and said softly. Tan Xiu, you don't even have a draft to brag. Aren't you afraid of exposing yourself in 2 days? You cried for an hour during the language exam and directly gave up on the math exam. You think that's okay? The students of the important class are really amazing. Not only are their academic results good, but their ability to brag is also top-notch. Just as Tan Xiu's voice faded away, a burst of ridicule sounded in his ears. Even Qing Yannan, who was sitting in front of Tan Xiu, frowned. She looked at Tan Xiu with a trace of disappointment. Whether it was the language exam in the morning or the math exam in the afternoon, Tan Xiu made too much noise in the exam room. So much so that many people knew about Tan Xiu's performance in the exam room. This made the people who hated Tan Xiu hate Tan Xiu even more. Even those who originally had a glimmer of hope for Tan Xiu were completely disappointed. Seeing that Tan Xiu was ridiculed by his classmates because of his words, Yuan Chuling wanted to slap himself in the face. Yuan Chuling subconsciously looked at Qing Yannan for help. Although Qing Yannan came to class 10 only a month earlier than Yuan Chuling and Tan Xiu, Qing Yannan succeeded in conquering all the students in class 10 with her valiant fighting strength and abnormal academic performance, completely stabilizing her position as the big sister. Because of Qing Yannan's care, Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling's days in class 10 were very comfortable. Not only did they have a good learning environment, but they also received Qing Yannan's care and greetings from time to time. This made Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling extremely enjoy, but also made other students in class 10 even more envious and jealous of them. If someone dared to ridicule Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling in the past, Qing Yannan would have already stopped them. This time, Qing Yannan directly avoided Yuan Chuling's gaze and still buried her head in the exam paper as if she didn't see or hear anything. Huh, two cowards. It's fine if their grades are bad, but they don't even have the courage to admit it. Are you still men? Are they men? If they were men, why would they always hide behind a woman? If it were me, I would have already found a piece of tofu and killed myself. The students in class 10 were originally worried that Qing Yannan would stand up for Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling, so they were more restrained in their words. When everyone found that Qing Yannan's attitude towards Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling had changed, they began to be unscrupulous in their words. Under the ridicule and abuse of the crowd, Yuan Chuling's breathing became more and more rapid, and his handsome face also became red. Just when Yuan Chuling couldn't help but slap the table and stand up, Tan Xiao lightly coughed and stopped Yuan Chuling's impulse. In fact, whether our monthly tests results are good or bad has nothing to do with you. You have no right to ridicule our results. If your academic results were good, you wouldn't be sitting in this classroom, right? Tan Xiao lightly glanced at the crowd of students who seemed to have been injected with chicken blood and indifferently said. Tan Xiao's simple words seemed to ignite a powder keg, making the classroom of class 10 instantly boil up. Tan Xiao, do you still have a sense of class honor? How can your monthly tests results be good or bad has nothing to do with us. If your examination results are good, the overall results of our class 10 will go up, and we won't be at the bottom of the third grade group. If your examination results are bad, won't we be implicated by you? Tan Xiao, your examination results are almost zero every time. How can you still have the courage to participate in the examination? If it were me, I would have already given up so as not to cause trouble for others. Tan Xiao, Miss Han is under a lot of pressure to let you stay in class 10. In the entire Xingqing No. 1 high school, except for Miss Han, it is estimated that no other class dares to accept you. If it weren't for Miss Han, you would have already been expelled from the school. Miss Han is so good to you, why don't you understand Miss Han? Tan Xiao obviously didn't think that his words would make him become the target of public criticism. But hearing these people's words, Tan Xiao didn't get angry, instead, a smile appeared on his face. Tan Xiao could hear that these people's words didn't have too much malice. Their understanding and concern for Han Qinggu were sincere, and their sense of class honor was also true. There is a saying in the book of poetry, give me a papaya, and I will return it with a jade. A bandit's revenge is always good. Give me a peach, and I will return it with a jade. A bandit's revenge is always good. Give me a plum, and I will return it with a jade. A bandit's revenge is always good. This time, I will get the first place in the grade examination. Just wait and see. After Tan Xiao finished his words, he got up and left the classroom. After Tan Xiao left, the classroom fell into a dead silence. After a long time, everyone woke up from Tan Xiao's words. Isn't it just giving a peach in return for a plum? Why did he have to drop the bag? I was stunned for a long time and didn't know what he was talking about. What did he just say? He wants to get the first place in the grade in this monthly examination. We must have heard it wrong. It's more likely that Tan Xiao will get the last place in the grade. As for the first place, he can only get it in his dream. In the entire classroom, only 2 people were silent and didn't speak. Their faces also showed a thoughtful look. Yuan Chuling was even a little excited. Fiercely staring at the people who were sneering and ridiculing him, Yuan Chuling packed his things and left the classroom. He was afraid that if he continued to stay in the classroom, he would not be able to control himself and hurt people. I heard that his memory was seriously damaged after the car accident. Not only can he not remember the new things, but he also quickly forgets the things that he has already mastered. That is to say, when he entered class 10, his basic knowledge was almost blank. He has only entered class 10 for a short period of a month. Can he get the first place in the grade? Qing Yannan whispered, and the disappointed look on her face deepened. The next day, the monthly examination continued. Tan Xiu's farce in the examination room also continued. In the morning's comprehensive subject paper, when the other examinees were still scratching their ears and cheeks and struggling with the first page of the paper with sweat on their foreheads, Tan Xiu indifferently got up and left. In the afternoon's English test, including the time for the listening test, Tan Xiu only took half an hour to hand in the paper and leave. At this time, the other students had just finished the multiple-choice questions and had not had time to look at the comprehension questions. Xingcheng No. 1 High School implemented a closed education system. Usually, there were no holidays. Only at the end of each month would they have 2 or 3 days off to go home. This was the monthly vacation. After the monthly examination, the high school students also ushered in a short period of respite. After the end of the monthly examination, Tan Xiu did not stay in school to continue to study hard like the other high school students, nor did he go to the library. Instead, he impatiently walked in the direction of the old River Street area because he knew that his mother must have made a lot of delicious food waiting for him. Before Tan Xiu entered high school, he had been living in the countryside. It was not until he stood out in the high school entrance examination and was admitted to Xingcheng No. 1 High School with the highest score in the city that he left the countryside for the first time. In order to take care of Tan Xiu, Su Lingyun followed Tan Xiu into the city. However, Su Lingyun was a rural woman. It was easy for her to do farm work, but it was extremely difficult for her to find a job in the city. Therefore, during the 3 years in Star City, Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu, mother and son, had suffered a lot and lived a precarious life. Fortunately, Su Lingyun was able to endure hardships and work hard. She rushed to do all the dirty and tiring work. After a few years, she finally accumulated a little money. She also scraped together and borrowed more than 100,000 yuan. Then, she gritted her teeth and rented a shop in the old River Street area. The mother and son's life finally settled down. Chapter 14. Mom, I'm back. Seeing the words, neighbor's restaurant, from afar, Tan Xiu's face showed a sincere smile, and he couldn't help but shout. Soon, the smile on Tan Xiu's face froze. Because after Tan Xiu shouted, his mother didn't rush out of the restaurant to greet him like before. On the contrary, the neighbors in the surrounding area sighed one after another when they heard his shout, and some of them had sympathetic expressions. Did something happen to the restaurant? Clearly seeing the reaction of the neighbors, Tan Xiu's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly ran into the restaurant. When Tan Xiu entered the restaurant, he saw that the entire restaurant was in a mess. Dishes, soup, and broken dishes filled the entire hall. The dining table and chairs were all kicked to the ground, and the walls and floor were scratched beyond recognition. From the direction of the kitchen came the sound of smashing, and there was a faint sound of begging and crying. Hearing the sound from the kitchen, Tan Xiu's blood instantly rushed to his head, and his eyes burst with sparks of anger. Brother He, please don't smash anymore. These things in the kitchen are all of our restaurant's belongings. If you smash these things, our restaurant can no longer operate. When Tan Xiu entered the kitchen, he saw his mother holding the arm of a middle-aged man and begging with tears on her face. Now you know to ask me to be lenient. What were you doing earlier? I asked you to hand over 5,000 yuan as protection fee by the middle of this month. It's already the end of the month, and the money is still missing. Do you take our words for granted? Smash, you must smash hard for me. If you don't teach her an unforgettable lesson, she will never take our words to heart. The middle-aged man raised his arm and pushed Su Lingyun to the ground, and then kicked the steamer in front of him. With a loud bang, the huge steamer overturned on the ground. At the same time, the steaming hot water poured out and flowed all over the ground. Mom, be careful. Seeing that the boiling water in the steamer was about to pour on his mother, Tan Xiu rushed into the kitchen and helped his mother up. Xiu, you're back. You haven't eaten yet, right? Mom will make delicious food for you immediately. After being helped up by Tan Xiu, Su Lingyun was in a trance, and then said in a panic. After Su Lingyun finished speaking, she remembered the current situation of the restaurant, and couldn't help but stand awkwardly in place, feeling a little helpless. The tableware in the kitchen was destroyed by the 7 gangsters led by Zeta Persei. Su Lingyun couldn't even make the simplest egg fried rice for Tan Xiu, let alone as luxuriously as before to satisfy Tan Xiu's gluttonous desire. Clearly seeing his mother's desperate and helpless look in his eyes, Tan Xiu couldn't help but feel a burst of sadness. In Tan Xiu's heart, Su Lingyun not only did her job as a mother, but also played the role of a father perfectly, taking care of him in every possible way. For more than a decade, his mother had been working hard without complaint, holding up the entire sky for him, allowing him to grow up healthily and carefreely. It was to the point that he had almost forgotten that his mother was a woman, a helpless and lonely woman. There was a lot of trouble in front of a widow's door. Thinking of the supercilious looks, sarcasm, and rumors that his mother had suffered over the years, Tan Xiu felt a burst of heartache. "Mom, it's still early, I'm not hungry, let's go home and eat later." Tan Xiu tightly hugged his mother's thin body, and said with a pair of red eyes. "Go home, you still want to go home? If you don't take out the 5,000 yuan today, don't even think about going home." The dark-skinned middle-aged man snorted coldly, interrupting the conversation between Tan Xiu and his mother. Hearing the words of the dark-skinned middle-aged man, Su Lingyun trembled in fear. She hurriedly hugged Tan Xiu in her arms, and said with a trembling voice, "Brother He, this matter has nothing to do with my son, please let him go. Please give me 1 day, by this time tomorrow, I will definitely hand over the 5,000 yuan with both hands. Today only 5,000 yuan can solve the problem, tomorrow it won't be this amount." Zeta Persei squinted at Su Lingyun, and said in a strange tone. "Brother He, I remember that our store used to only need 2,000 yuan a month as protection fee. Why did it soar to 5,000 this month?" Tan Xiu unobtrusively shielded his mother behind him and said coldly. Zeta Persei obviously didn't expect Tan Xiu to suddenly stand up and speak, and even dare to question the standard of his fee. Thinking of Tan Xiu's silly look in the past, he was stunned for a moment and didn't say anything, but looked at Tan Xiu with suspicion. "Fuck your mother, do we need you to tell us what to do?" Seeing that Zeta Persei seemed to be stabilized by Tan Xiu, a green-haired punk behind Zeta Persei roared, raised his palm, and was about to slap Tan Xiu. Just after the green-haired punk's hand was more than 10 centimeters away from Tan Xiu's face, a piece of broken glass suddenly flew from the ground and fiercely pierced the green-haired punk's wrist, and the green-haired punk suddenly bled. The poor green-haired punk just wanted to show off his power, and didn't think that he would encounter such an encounter. Caught off guard, his wrist was pierced, and he screamed in pain, no longer caring about dealing with Tan Xiu. The green-haired punk didn't care about dealing with Tan Xiu, but it didn't mean that Tan Xiu let go of the green-haired punk. No matter how the students of Class 10 insulted him, Tan Xiu didn't say a word. It's not that Tan Xiu has a good temper, nor is it because Tan Xiu is a coward, but because in the eyes of Tan Xiu, the students of Class 10 are just a group of children. They only flaunted their sharp tongues at him, and didn't really touch Tan Xiu's reverse scale. But this group of thugs in front of him was different. Not only did they destroy his mother's painstaking efforts, but they also forced his mother into a desperate situation. Whether it was physically or psychologically, they had caused harm to his mother. This made Tan Xiu extremely angry. The most important thing is that his mother is the only reverse scale in Tan Xiu's heart. So the moment this group of punks smashed the restaurant, Tan Xiu has already sentenced them to death, not to mention that they also pushed his mother to the ground. The other punks haven't reacted to what's going on, but Tan Xiu has already taken a step forward and stood beside the green-haired punk. He kicked the green-haired punk's knee, directly kicking the green-haired punk to the ground, and then stepped on the other's face, making the other completely unable to speak. Tan Xiu's movements were exceptionally fast, causing the green-haired bully to whimper and struggle on the ground for a long time. Only then did the other bullies react to what had happened. "Little bastard, you dare to touch us, don't you want to live? Bastard, quickly let go of my brother, or I will break your dog legs." Realizing that their own people were beaten by Tan Xiu, the group of punks was furious. They almost rushed to Tan Xiu together. Only Zeta Persei stood in place and didn't move, but his eyes were shining as he curiously looked at Tan Xiu. Zeta Persei has been in the old River Street area for more than 20 years. He knows everything about the old River Street area like the back of his hand. Although the restaurant has only been open for less than half a year, Zeta Persei has thoroughly figured out the details of the restaurant. As far as Zeta Persei knows, the owner of the restaurant, Su Lingyun, came from the countryside, and she also has a half-grown son. Before opening the restaurant, she worked a lot of jobs. Moving bricks, carrying cement bags, picking up garbage, being a supermarket salesperson, delivering fast food. As long as she can make money, this woman will rush to do any dirty and tiring work. She is a typical outsider. A month ago, a man with sunglasses suddenly came to Zeta Persei and offered 100,000 yuan to deal with Su Lingyun and Tan Xiu. Although Zeta Persei sympathizes with Su Lingyun's experience, he is not related to Su Lingyun after all. If he had to choose between Su Lingyun and 100,000 yuan, Zeta Persei would choose the latter without hesitation. Isn't Su Lingyun's son, Tan Xiu, an idiot? According to my previous observation, there is indeed something wrong with Tan Xiu's brain. Why is he speaking so reasonably today, and he is so ruthless? He doesn't seem like an idiot at all. In the commission of the man with sunglasses, harassing the restaurant was just bait. Bullying Su Lingyun was also a trap. The purpose was to lure Tan Xiu out. What they really needed to deal with was Tan Xiu. This made Zeta Persei have to pay attention to see if there was anything wrong with Tan Xiu. An idiot is an idiot after all. We have 7 adults on our side. He, a weak teenager, dares to take the initiative to attack us. He is completely ignorant. Isn't he looking for trouble? Soon, Zeta Persei shook his head and cast his eyes on Su Lingyun. In the past, Zeta Persei had never seriously looked at Su Lingyun. He only felt that Su Lingyun's life was pitiful and her character was respectable. Today, after carefully looking at Su Lingyun, he found that Su Lingyun was a rare beauty. She was more beautiful than most of the women he had seen. This made him have a crooked idea for a while. If Su Lingyun is willing to live with me, I really can't bear to do anything to her. Unfortunately, Su Lingyun is too stubborn. She doesn't buy into me at all. Thinking of Su Lingyun's desperate resistance for the past month, Zeta Persei shook his head and felt impatient. While Zeta Persei stood on one side and let his imagination run wild, the battle on the other side was in full swing. When the other 5 gangsters roared and rushed toward Tan Xiu did not show any fear. Instead, his face was full of excitement. Tan Xiu hooked his foot and the green-haired gangster's body flew up and directly hit the 3 gangsters in front of him. Then, Tan Xiu's other foot swept out and knocked down the gangster who tried to sneak up on him from the left. The gangster happened to be lying in the boiling water, screaming in pain. Seeing that the last person's fist was about to hit Tan Xiu's forehead, Tan Xiu sneered. He suddenly stretched out 2 fingers and poked the other person's wrist, then stopped the other person's fist in midair. After casually restraining the 5 gangsters, Tan Xiu looked at the tanned middle-aged man and said with a frosty face, "Zeta Persei, almost everything in our restaurant has been destroyed by you. Let's discuss compensation now." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.